I really got to fix how loud that is. Hey, everybody, how's it going? Welcome to episode 89 of Heavy Metallurgy, Friday edition. Alan, good day. How are you?
Good day, Marcy.
What's
that was
new?
A very formal greeting.
Very formal. Good day, sir, to you.
Yeah,
Good day.
We're breaking out like the Victorian mannerisms here tonight. I'm impressed. But no, I'm doing pretty good. It's been a pretty good week. Busy, but can kind of take it easy now. Relax, have a little fun with stuff.
You scared the crap out of me.
Well, that's a pretty horror-filled way to start the evening. Well,
wow.
May have piddled in my pajamas just a little bit there.
We can break for a change real quick, a little pit stop if you need to go swab the deck.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm a professional. I won't be the first time I've sat in pee pants for a long time.
Right.
Right. Melissa wanted to have a little fun and couldn't say no to that. Okay, I kind of twisted her arm a little bit, but she pulled through like a trooper. Absolutely.
She's a trooper. We need to get her on. Keep telling her. Keep listening to that Power Metal. We'll have a Power Metal episode with Melissa. It'll be great.
We will try to do so at some point when she is ready to unleash the hooded menace once more.
Don't be scared. Don't be scared. But well, we're here another week. It's been a good one here for me as well. We had a pretty good episode on Wednesday with the Heavy Metallurgy Album Club.
What was that band name again?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Go back and watch the show. It's a fun one.
Yeah, it's an interesting album, and y'all did a really good job breaking it down because it wasn't an easy one to kind of wrap your head around.
We do have some cool announcements coming up soon, but we'll save those. Things are right on the precipice of happening, so we'll wait on that. But
yes. Lots of cool shows coming up. Lots of guests starting to kind of get penciled in. So all kinds of nice stuff in the works. But in the here and now, we got something very cool for tonight as well. We've got a returning guest, a fan favorite, and just personal favorite for both of us as well. Haven't had him on the show for a while because he's always super busy. But tonight we were able to book him.
Yep, he's back, and he'll be back again sooner than later. But you all know him. We all love him. King, how's it doing? How's it going, my friend?
Oh, hi.
There it is.
I was hoping y'all had Alice Cooper write us, King's back. He's got it next. Blah, 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 blah. Now, it's great to see you guys, man. I missed you guys, man.
Good to see you. How was whoop?
Lost
that was me. That was me. That was me.
That easy
Sorry.
to take me out, huh?
We'll keep you in line real quick. Just want to know, how did you had 2 tours that Deceased has done here in the last few months. How did all that go? One with Bulldozer, one with the Accused.
Phenomenal. A lot of East Coast, obviously. Got back into Canada, which had been years since we've been in Canada. And that was important to us. We did 3 shows up there. Those shows were great. The Accused one was kind of a co-headlining. Bulldozer, we were playing like direct support to them. But it was fantastic. I mean, it was 2 of my idols, Blaine from the Accused and AC Wild from Bulldozer, 2 of my idols growing up. We had a great time. It really did. It was a good way to end out the year and stuff. And we're about to get back to it. We got 3 shows coming up in Florida in February, down in Orlando and in Tampa and in Miami. So
right on.
We're back to it again. But, you go down for about a week. You stick a turkey in your guts. And then you put a tree up and you give some presents away. And then 12 o'clock on the 31st, you scream a little, and then you're right back to it, man.
Yep. And this is James brought this up. This is a good thing to talk about real quick. A little aside, Jamie Josta has bought the rights to the Milwaukee Metal Fest from Jack Koshik, everyone's favorite.
Where's my wallet?
Implementer of the massive curtain between Deceased and Virgin Steel. I'll never forget that. Show in the Jersey, November to December.
The Iron Curtain.
Did not. One side, there's people going crazy for Deceased. Around the corner, there's 5 people watching Virgin Steel. They did not look happy.
That's what you call a mashup, Marty. It's barbaric, romantic, zombie apocalypse. the best of both worlds.
It's actually David Defied messed up. He should have put Exorcist up there, and then everybody would have been on the Exorcist side.
I wouldn't have. I would have maybe snuck a peek, but I'd been back.
Just a peek.
But yeah, there's talks. Jamie Jasta, everybody knows him from Hatebreed, like him or not. Like the band or not, doesn't much matter. He has said that on the Facebook page that no bands will be paying to play this show, which is interesting.
Good thing. I mean,
It's good to have an artist running a show like this. You might get a little bit more care and support to the bands that are actually coming and doing what they're going to do. What do you guys think? Milwaukee Metal Fest. For me, it was a big, important show because I'm just around the pond from it. So it's a good, 6, 7, 8 hour drive for me, but it was a big deal for me. That was a big deal show. Did Deceased ever? I'm sure Deceased played that thing once or
we
twice.
played it a few times. It was always cool for us because we never got to go really out and touring and stuff because Mike and Mark back then had a lot of work schedule. We had to do a lot of the weekend warrior stuff. So by going to Milwaukee, everybody across the country usually came to us so we could be in one spot and get a lot of those people in one shot. I always had fun. I mean, Jack was cheap and he is what he is. There's plenty of horror tales. I never have a horror tale as far as getting paid from him. Not at all. I wouldn't leave the room, And so we got what we, he'd always try to anybody. I watched Obituary pull teeth with him. I watched Testament one time pull teeth with him. Just see just how it was. But I mean, a lot of times you go there, promise there'll be a back line and stuff, and you go in the room. I remember playing one of them, and I swear there was like a 3-piece. I almost had to use the floor tom for a bass drum. One of them. But we always had a blast meeting people across the country, pen pals and stuff. Can't say anything bad about just the show itself. A lot of times the bands you want to see might get cut short or play it between a curtain, blah blah blah. the one you're talking about was Asbury Park one time. That's the one you were talking about?
Yeah, was that the November to Dismember Jack Koshik thing?
Yeah, I think it was. That's that one there, man. I got thrown out. I got stunned by a police taser twice.
Yeah, you and I were sitting talking, and you were having some fun, and then it wasn't long after I'm like, where'd King go? Well, you were ejected from the premises.
I mean, we get so off topic, but yeah, basically bottom line was we were there Friday. The security that they hired for the show didn't like any of our guys. Saturday we played a little early. They had this beer garden, and I kept telling the guy I needed to go out and use the bathroom. He wanted everybody to walk through this rope thing, and I said, well, I'm in here, I need to go out. He goes, wait till the IDs stop coming, and I check them. I'm waiting like 30-40 minutes to take a pee. So finally, I just walked over the red movie kind of garden thing.
Yep.
And so, I got something came up on my screen. Sorry. And then I just went in the bathroom, and there was nowhere to pee, so I just peed in the sink. And he came in there and ripped my shirt off. And the real cops from the other side of the door outside, the New Jersey cops, they put my head through the glass and all this, and then they stun gunned me. And I was like, "You can't hurt the beast," so whatever, something stupid like that. So that zapped again. All my nerves were like, I was like a cricket, chirp, like freaked out in my mind. And then they were going to take me to jail. And then Chris Costello from Abominog pulled up in a van and said, jump in. I jumped in, and we just took off into the night, man.
Right
so
on.
That was my story there. But yeah, all of them are what they were. They're all memories in my mind now. And we probably did 3 or 4. There was one in San Antonio we played. There was one in California we played where Venom was supposed to show up, and they never showed up. Probably played Milwaukee twice and probably Jersey twice. So probably six times, I'd say.
Well, it's a big deal for the Midwest, and it's a big deal for Midwestern metal bands, and it'll be interesting to see, what sort of turnout this gets.
We played a show with Hatebreed and Entomb one night, and he was definitely interesting. He's a card, and I don't know what he knows about the old school heavy metal that I like, and I think we all like together. We'll see what happens. I mean, who knows? It might be all new school, old school. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Who knows?
It'll be interesting. Yeah.
That's all we can do is see.
Yeah. If fans don't have to pay, that's great. It begs the question: are the tickets going to be more expensive?
Probably.
Someone has costs are incurred that have to be, unless he's just doing it out of the goodness of his heart, trying to writing off on his taxes or something.
That's true.
Maybe we'll get to see a Dee Snider solo performance with Jamie Josta, and maybe a Corpse Grinder solo performance with Jamie Josta. There you go. Never know. We'll see. But that's not why we're here tonight. We're here to talk about. Well, Alan, this is kind of your idea, I think. Here, this is what are we talking about?
Don't blame me. It was his idea.
Oh, it was King's idea. What are we here to talk about tonight?
We're talking about horror and heavy metal.
There we go.
Horror and heavy metal. 2 things that are great together.
Now, how did you possibly come up with this idea, King?
Well, I knew I was coming in on Friday the 13th, and immediately I was thinking, well, Friday the 13th, what can we do on that subject and stuff? And horror and heavy metal, I mean, it's touched on sometimes here and there, but I don't really think there's any deep conversation about it anywhere. You know what I'm saying? Maybe there is. I haven't seen the podcast yet, so I apologize if there is. But I mean, I just think it's 2 things that have been together a long time. Back to, we'll just take it back to even before Black Sabbath with the heavy metal, you could just use the Crazy World of Arthur Brown or Screaming Jay Hawkins for
Alice
music,
Cooper.
With stuff like that. Is that the first black metal? Is that voodoo metal?
Yeah.
Voodoo rock? So it comes a long way. But basically, Black Sabbath, their first theme tune is still one of the spookiest horror tinge things that's ever come down the pike.
Well, they got their name from the Boris Karloff 1963 movie Black Sabbath.
That is correct. The Drop of Water, which obviously Deceased Luck of the Corpse is one of those stories from that movie.
Yep.
Yeah, horror and metal just seem to go together. Horror works in popular music. The ones you just rattled off, King, are good examples. Screaming Jay Hawkins was one. I used to have this album. It was kind of a novelty album, but it actually is a collectible one. It's a band called The Ghouls with Dracula's Deuce. It's basically, Beach Boys, surf rock music, but just replace every time they say the word girl with the word vampire, and you pretty much have what it is. But that's
cool. Well, I mean, that was a lot of this. That was a lot of the stuff back then. Like we'll use the Munsters theme as kind of a thing. That whole surfy kind of thing. That was part of it too. There was also the death punk rock too. Bands like 45 Grave. It was all about that kind of stuff. So it all kind of hits together here and there, and then you get the artwork and just what everybody grew up on. Most everybody. I have met people along the way, but most everybody I know in heavy metal loves horror movies. There's an occasional guy like, I hate horror movies. It's like sports with most metal guys. I hate sports, but switch it with horror. And some people just despise it, but I would say 98.3% of everybody into heavy metal loves horror movies.
I like a good horror movie, but I will say that horror was very much a big part of my teenage years. I really watched a lot of them, even the Faces and Traces of Death, the death documentaries. I was just like a sponge sucking all that garbage up. And the older I get now, I've switched over to fantasy and sci-fi.
There's 1.7% Marty.
Yep, exactly. I mean, I still enjoy a good horror movie, but I typically go more towards the religious suspense stuff, like Omen, Exorcist, Prophecy, Serpent in the Rainbow. I mean, stuff like that. It's the kind of mainstream Angel Heart. The evil kind of creepy, spooky type movies.
I mean, the real horrors of the world are the real horrors of the world. I still think Johnny Got His Gun is one of the most horror movies that's ever made, because that can happen. These like personal things, or a Jacob's Ladder kind of thing. Things like that. I mean, they're different kinds of horror. You know what I'm saying? You like those ones. I love those ones too, especially a slow brooding one that just gets under your skin. And then you have the ones where, your Evil Deads, where everything's thrown at you and you just kind of go with it. Those are mostly more fun than scary.
Oh, they're fun. They're kind of horror comedy.
Exactly. They're just more like fun, but they're all part of it to me. I mean, I know for a fact I've had to have seen in my day, with genuinely guessing, without not even saying repeating movies, because there's plenty of movies I've seen more than once. I've probably seen at least 12,000 horror movies in my days. And that's like not repeating. You know what I'm saying? Like, probably all together. I know I've seen Phantasm 26 times and The Exorcist 25 times. I'm only counting them as once. So I've seen all the dogs and, the hidden gems and all that stuff. And it means the world to me. As I said before we went on the air, if you look behind me, that's where it's all horror DVDs, man. That's all I do. That's where my money goes. I love watching it. Me and my wife watch it constantly every day. We were going to watch one tonight. And I said, nope, I got to go on the air with these two critters known as I'm Steel.
Got to talk about horror instead of watching horror.
Yeah. Well, there's always after. You can always go. And people at the end, I'll leave a little space. So if you have any questions for King regarding horror movies or Deceased, feel free. We'll leave a good half hour, 40 minutes for that to happen. So
at the end of things, we've already set aside some time to make sure everyone has a chance to ask King anything they want to. Just that way we don't always keep jumping from topic to topic all night. So hold your questions till the end, and King shall answer them for you.
Yep.
But GG Charles had a couple of good band names a minute ago with Coven and Black Widow. Really early stuff, not really heavy metal, but they very much had the kind of the occult flavored horror stuff worked in. And that's right at the very dawn of when you're starting to have heavy metal take some way, shape, or form. So it's been there from the very start, like you said, King too. The Black
Oh
Sabbath.
yeah, those bands, yeah, they definitely put the concept and the visual to it a bit more than other people. They were adding the next step to it for sure. You take that, or you can go the opposite. A band that wasn't a horror thing at all, but had one of the creepiest songs ever written, Blood Rock, DOA. Absolutely one of the spookiest, freakiest, death doom. It was a hit so much that it scared people in the 70s. That a lot of radio stations refused to play it, and it was a top 40 hit. DOA from I think that was 71 or 73, one of those years, early
right
70s.
Yep.
So that those guys were just a bunch of pot smoking, like Gene wearing, most of their stuff was just rock and roll, hard rock.
Yeah.
But that song was spooky. And I like what you're saying, the Covenant of Black Widows and stuff like that. That was great. Of course, Alice Cooper right there with them too, because stepping on that, and I'm sure we'll step on that more. But that's just how it all got there. It's neat. It's just really, it's cool because everybody adds their own flavor to it, moving forward to your King Diamonds and things like that of our youth.
Yeah, much later down the line. I guess it kind of begs the question, why was it there almost from the beginning? Why did those bands pick that to incorporate into their lyrics and their visuals? Why didn't they focus on something else? Is there something about horror and heavy metal that just make them click together so easily that literally bands were doing it from almost day one? What do we think?
Marty?
Well, I was just looking up. I was curious when Alice Cooper started because he predates all of this. The Alice Cooper band formed in 1964. 1964, which is a long ass time ago, and he is in a time where this type of stuff he was doing on stage was, I'm sure, quite a shock to the general 60s pop music rock type of casual fans.
I think it was a rebellious thing for the hippies and all that kind of stuff for sure.
Yeah, very rebellious.
And also too, Alice Cooper didn't really start off completely shock rock from the start. He kind of got to that a little bit later, especially when he went more solo. You know what I'm saying? Like more of his solo stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Right on.
Like Welcome to My Nightmare would be the one for me where it was really the most shockiest stuff.
And that early stuff too, it's when music and video started to happen. You start getting into the 70s, you got the weird Black Sabbath Paranoid, psychedelic whack out psychedelic trip videos. And I remember, early Alice Cooper type stuff, being on TV or just a weird video, or you start attaching horror themed rock, shock rock to TV video. That takes it to the next step as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
I read, well, go ahead.
Go ahead, Alan. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say something I read recently, and I'm drawing a blank on where I saw it now. But someone had mentioned they thought one reason that the occult stuff, the horror stuff, got into heavy metal was just partly due to timing. That heavy metal was the new thing developing, and bands were kind of looking for the next thing to kind of push the envelope a little bit. Because
when you say heavy metal, 60, do you mean the hard rock of the 70s, like the Sabbaths and stuff, or do you mean
like the Sabbaths, the Zeppelins, those kind of bands? Because at that point, drugs really didn't have the same shock value anymore. At that point, they were still obviously frowned upon by mainstream society, but people had gotten used to them by that point.
They're commonplace at that point.
Having long hair, that wasn't really shocking. That wasn't going to walking down the street or something, you might get, hassled, but it wasn't going to like really turn heads. It wasn't going to be like a big thing. And so whatever I was reading had kind of proposed, I know what it was. It was a Black Sabbath documentary. They were talking about, early Black Sabbath years. And so they had kind of mentioned, from their point of view, getting into like, the occult stuff, that was kind of the next taboo for some of these early bands.
What do you think of stuff like the Manson murders and Vietnam and the the horror of war kind of leading out of that peace love into more quote unquote violent times? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and they brought those up thing too with the timing on the Manson murders and stuff. But then because,
I think Sabbath went looking for something, and I'm not sure with the first one if they were going to stay with the satanic thing moving forward because a lot of Paranoid doesn't even go down that wrote at all. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
No,
a lot of
no,
that stuff.
not
I think they were looking for more real horrors. And I think with Geezer writing the lyrics, a lot of that real horrors of the world, like drug overdose or losing faith in God or having no faith in religion, more so than the devil himself. And I've read plenty of Sabbath stuff, as I'm sure you guys have too, where he's kind of denounces a lot of that horror stuff with Sabbath. You know, and we all know going forward, there really wasn't a lot of it. And even though they're known for their, their cross and all the religious aspects of it, a lot of it isn't. I think when Dio came in, especially like Mob Rules, there was a lot more like intensity that it kind of did more like, the sign of the Southern Cross or something like that. But when you're starting to get to like, we'll just say, Snowblind or cornucopia or stuff like that, you're just looking at drug phased out kind of guys and stuff. So Sabbath didn't I think they like dropped the it into the idea box, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and
sure.
It's there. The cover art for Sabbath Bloody Sabbath has that kind of
but even if you listen to that record, it's not a lot of horror 10 stuff.
No.
I will say, like Marty was saying earlier about the movies, the intensity of the real hells of the world, mental illness, et cetera, which is something that I've kind of gone down the path with Deceased. When we started off, it was let's write about grave robbing, let's write about the end of the world, typical stuff. As time went on and we got to albums like Surreal Overdose or Ghostly White, it kind of got really personal to the point it was kind of upsetting at times, because you were writing about things like Alzheimer's disease and doctors killing their patients and just real hell, real horror of the world.
Well, let's talk. I actually picked this album to talk about tonight, and I think now, since you mentioned it, it would be a good time to do so. I mean, would you consider this this is a pretty pivotal album for the band, I would say. I mean, this is where you guys kind of streamlined. You were always, early death metal band with some thrash and some other weirdness in it. And on this album, things start to streamline, get a little bit more congealed and more traditional metal infused as well. And not only that, you embrace this Ramiro type of zombie apocalypse theme for this record. I mean, this is one of the first, granted, I knew you're on the show tonight, but this is the first one I grabbed. I mean, I think this is the first time I interviewed you. The only time I think we actually did an interview, but this album kicked my ass, and I think it kicked a lot of people's ass, and it really blended well, true heavy metal with a little death, old school death flavor and suspenseful horror. What were the thoughts going into this album, and what went into what came out of your toolbox when writing the concept for this?
Screwdriver. I'm dumb here. No, with that, going back to the demo days, the very first demo is what it is. It was called The Evil Side of Religion. Still to this day, don't know why. There was nothing behind that. But then I started wanting to do concept demos. So Birth by Radiation, Nuclear Exorcist were kind of this story of the world being losing its way from a god. It was kind of like a religious thing, which I'm not a god or a devil kind of guy. None of that does nothing for me in either way. You know what I'm saying? But what I wanted to come back to it, because when we did Luck of the Corpse, I was like, well, do we continue the storyline of the last two demos? Because if we do, and we're going to put out an album of it, then it's going to be stuck in this for the mainframe. And I'm thinking here almost 40 years later, that's how it's going to kind of be. And then I was like, nope, we're not doing that anymore. But I wanted to come back and finish it. But I also wanted to touch base, as you said, with the zombie and the Romero stuff, which was a big part of me growing up. I mean, Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead, especially those two, are very important in my life, especially Night of the Living Dead as a kid, getting that creepy feeling, laying underneath the table when mom's like, Creature Features coming on at 11:30. You got to see this movie, Night of the Living Dead. And then getting it in your head where it got the machine rolling. Yep. But as far as Fearless and the Machines, when it came time, I didn't want to repeat those songs. I wanted to write a new thing with a new era. And also it was 90, we were writing that 95, 96 at the time. My mind had moved on from those end of the world things and stuff, but I still wanted to touch base on some of that. And also wanted to get into the human factor, which songs on there like Unhuman Drama and things, you start getting about the thinking man and thinking beyond this just zombies and gore and blood, blah, blah, blah kind of thing. Musically, we just kind of, like you were saying, we knew we had more heavy metal in us. We knew we had more of this and that. We just had become better players. And by now it was time to show it. You know what I'm saying? Because before that, I won't say we were directionless, because we weren't. Blueprints was just what it was. It was the Blueprints for Madness. We just went all over the place with it. But by the time me and Mike Smith especially sat down, he said, look, I write heavy metal riffs. This is what I do. This is what I'm good at and stuff. And he's showing me stuff like Silent Creature riffs or Night of the Deceased. And I'm like, man, this is really good stuff. So it just took. And as far as the horror thing, we were all four of us, were me, Mark, Mike, and Les at the time, all love that stuff. So we would talk about it. We would sit there and go, yeah, let's do a little piece. Like, for example, From the Ground They Came, we were like, something like Goblin would do, and we started doing that. Or that we just talk about a part. I'm like, yeah, you remember in blah, 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 when this happened. So it just came naturally. You know what I'm saying? It really did come naturally. And yeah, see, to me, like, now here's where it goes. Like, I'm looking over here because I have all the records on the wall. Like, when Fearless came out, I look at that as more as a serious comic book, okay, kind of angle stuff, where there's still some of the cliches of horror to it. But then, like I said, you can move forward and you can go to, like, Surreal Overdose will be the one I really point to, because that's the one where it's really the most detailed human hell. And I see the difference between comic book and real families dying, sure. People dying, people you should be able to believe in not coming through, your body failing on you, your family failing on you, things like that. And that upsets me. You know, like for here's a little self promo. The new Deceased record's called Children of the Morgue. People were asking me this on an interview the other day. A guy was asking me, what are you listening to for, inspiration? I said, you know what I'm doing for this record? They're like, well, I'm like, I'm watching documentaries on 4-year-old kids dying of brain cancer. I'm watching people that lost their child, their parents. What do they do? How do they go on without their kid? That's what I'm doing, because that's how dark and deep this is going to be. And this, I told Mike Smith this just 2 days ago when we were jamming. I said, I don't know how much more of this I could do, because it sits on me, man.
Yeah.
It's like it's intense. So
it's even more so when you have children of your own. In your case, a grandchild, and the older you get, the mortality. When you're young and dumb, you're full of piss and vinegar, you don't think about dying as much. But the older we get, that thought is it swirls around, and
it's been sitting on me a lot since I had my health problems in 2002 and 2004, and then when we did the As the Weird Travel On. That record, my mother had passed away. All that was sitting right there up on me, and it's been there ever since. It really goes back. The first song I really ever felt was like lyrically that bothered me. Some people won't get the lyrics; they won't. It's just me, because I wrote them, and I kind of know. And it's like a movie. You got this out of that. I didn't get this out of that, but whatever was a reproduction of Tragedy from the Blueprints for Madness record, and what that was me trying to tell a tale about. When we lost our bass player Rob in 1988, I was trying to do like a monkey's paw tale. Like, what if he was to come back, but he really was fucked up, but it really happened. It's not just a Hammer anthology thing or something like that. And that really, it stuck with me, like how weird that was. And that was one that I was like, kept bringing that back to my mind. And I might have pushed it to the side because Fearless came next. And then Supernatural Addiction was a lot of things it was horror based for sure. It was on movies we loved and literature we loved and things like that. I wrote Edgar Allan Poe, who's my favorite when it comes to that kind of stuff. And we were really caught up in that Blair Witch, which brought all of us some people hate the movie. We loved the movie. All four of us went down, saw it a couple times at the art theater before it even took off in the big multiplexes and stuff. And it was like, it brought back the boogeyman for me, so but that was a different thing. But then when you get to real horror of the world, by the time we got again to like the Weird Travel On, hinted at it, and then I had to go full force on Surreal, and then I backed off it a little bit on Ghostly White, which it had some, but it also kind of went back to, I don't want to say comic book, but lesser things. But this new one is going to be, it's so deep. It's basically a concept record on life and death. Right. I mean, it is, I guess, being 54, Mike's 55, you like you said, it's sitting right there looking at you, man.
And all your friends and family are starting to go. The old guard are passing on, and it you're thinking about it constantly. What friend passed? Holy shit! Or
we're at that age. People
family
think,
member.
More. It's not happening more and more. All our idols and stuff are there. I mean, you see, they're like Lisa Marie, or everybody's passed the last couple of days. Yeah, things like it's going to happen more and more because that's where you're at. Your thing. You can either have a midlife crisis or fucking shut yourself down, or you can understand it and just realize life is a son of a bitch. It is what it is. Katharine Hepburn. Life is the toughest thing because in the end it kills you. That's her quote. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we're doing with the new stuff when it comes to that. I'm going a little bit off the side, but that is the real horror for now. Okay, so you're looking at, we'll say 2023, 2024, whenever the hell it comes out. Then you look back to what Alan was saying, like go back to like the early 70s and how it's changing from there. Go ahead 54 years and where it is now. That was still happening, and that's always been happening. It always will, life and death, and things like that. But it's changed. Like he's talking about the drug era, and we're talking about Vietnam and Manson and things like that. It pushed it forward. You know, it was no longer love. There was a lot of, you know, the underdog was trying to step forward and be like, and saying fuck the man too, you know, with the government, hitting people in war and blah blah blah.
Yeah, you had Kent State, you had Altamont, you know, all those
Absolutely.
things right there in a very small window of time, really. That really,
Yeah, you're on it exactly.
Really
Those
changed
all,
the vibe.
yeah, all that's, you know, all that treacherous shit.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we got to talk about the deceased stuff, because I mean this was a
Oh yeah,
I think this is a very big. I mean, deceased was doing just fine before this, but this was a very pivotal. Not only more streamlined, but I don't know, Relapse, they had you on a promotional. You were busting ass with promotion. I mean, everything seemed to jump up for deceased here. I know it wasn't always easy with Relapse. I know it was always a bumpy fucking road, but it got here, and I think it really kind of set you guys up for the second half. You know, what was to come next. You know,
I mean, it's all part of it. I mean, truthfully, I wouldn't change anything. It's all a learning experience, man. All of it.
Yep. Yeah, you're right, Marty. There was a good push for that album. You know, I'd heard the previous 2 albums, I think, Blueprints and Luck of the Corpse,
and the 13 EP in there too.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. You know, I was already familiar with your stuff, but I remember it was probably an issue of Metal Maniacs or some similar magazine. They had like, you know, a full, I want to say it was a full back page ad with the cover art.
We were shocked.
Yeah.
We're like, holy moly, Relapse did something.
It was kind of cropped, you know, like this, if I remember. So, you know, you kind of saw, you know, this one guy in particular zoomed up with the logo. Brother. And it's just, I remember, you know, just the ad alone is just like, okay, I'm going to have to check that out. I probably would have anyway, but the ad just, it was one of those cases where you're looking and just like, that's going to be good. That's just going to turn out well. And yeah, sure enough, you know, got it pretty soon after it came out. And, you know, just, you know, you started out that very opening little, you know, guitar noodly line that y'all do on The Silent Creature. You know, it's one of those moments where you just feel like, you know, the hairs start to stand up on end. And you're just like, oh shit, this is going to be good. This is going to be really fucking good.
I'm glad y'all dig it, man. It was fun doing it. You know, great memories, great times.
Yeah, it was one of those cases where, it was nice to see, you know, the album had a push from the start. The album, you know, very much lived up to its promise. And like Marty said, I think, it really, there were plenty of people that already knew Deceased, but it definitely, you know, seemed to open doors and get you a much wider visibility.
Some people came aboard then, some people jumped off. Oh, the King's not singing as deep anymore. It's not death metal.
That's true. I bet they did.
People can say Luck of the Corpse is their only death metal album, Deceased. I'll put Luck of the Corpse and I'll go all the way to the end, and I'll say the newer stuff is way more death metal that I was talking about. I'm not talking about your Cannibal Corpses and your Obituary, which to me have no real dirge, no real eeriness, no real, you know, like death to it. I mean, it's death metal because everything's grr and down tuned and all that. That's the way the world became with metal. Mm-hmm. You know, when something's going to tear me up, like, holy crap, this is some deep shit. This is some freaky shit. That's different. Some people tell me sometimes that we're suspense metal.
Well, if anybody here in the chat, I mean, I think I've been looking at our demographics, and we got a lot of older folks that watch our show. No bones about it. But if you're not a person that knows Deceased, I'm not saying this because King's here. I'm saying early stuff, you know, maybe there's some production issues because it's a young band, maybe don't have a ton of production money, but they've never put out a bad record or an EP. It's all been good. It's all been quality. So wherever you want to jump in with Deceased, you're have a good landing for sure. So anyway,
thank you, Marty.
Indeed. But yeah, what you just mentioned, King, you know, kind of leads to something else we were talking about backstage. That, you know, you were mentioning what makes death metal. Is it just, you know, the vocal tone and the guitar tuning, or does it have to have something else? Kind of the same thing we've been discussing about, you know, horror and metal is. How much horror does it take, and how do you put the horror into heavy metal? What counts? Is it just using sound clips? Is it using makeup? Is it using props? Is it just the song lyrics? What do we think? How much horror does a band have to inject before they get to kind of go under that it's not so official genre of horror metal?
I think some bands have mastered some of it, but I don't think there's any one band that's mastered all of it. I don't think there is such a thing that exists. I mean, I can remember when bands like Hollow's Eve, you know, were coming out and stuff, and Tales of Terror, and they were like horror metal. You know, that's what it was supposed to be.
Yeah,
and
they're the horror show.
And, you know, exactly. And, you know, to a degree it was. I can remember the old demos of Necrophagia talking with Killjoy about, you know, it was going to be like horror this. And you'd hear it, and I wouldn't get, see, again, it's like, if they're singing about it, but I don't feel anything, does it make it the same? Like, for example, like if you saw a horror movie and you went going in to get scared, but you're not scared, is it still a horror movie? If you laughed the whole time and it didn't upset you or, you know, just make you spooked or eerie, whatever the word is it still a horror movie?
You know what? I'm going to answer that. Yes, because if you're a big fan of this stuff, I mean, even with death metal or, you know, extreme music in general, if you like it and you become overstimulated by it and accustomed to it, yeah, I mean, there's been horror movies that probably aren't supposed to be funny that I've laughed at in the theater, and people look back at me like, "What the hell's wrong with this guy?" You know, I mean, I'm sure we've all done it. And
yeah, you're right. You definitely can get, you know, it gets harder to like break that wall down.
Yeah, and if they're not scary anymore, you're just kind of looking at different. Then you start looking at acting or composition or, you know, the quality of the gore or the jump scares or all this crap. You know,
that's a good point, Marty. What's the King? What's the Rob Zombie movie that came before Devil's Rejects? I can't think of the name.
House of 1,000 Corpses.
Yeah. A good example of that is when I went to see House of 1,000 Corpses with two friends, and it was funny because all three of us walked out of that movie with completely different reactions. One guy was literally like almost borderline in shock. You know, he had never seen anything like that. He was just like, that was a bit too much. Literally having trouble articulating. The girl we went with came out of it being just like, that was really lame. I was expecting a lot more from it. And I came out of it kind of laughing, just like, oh, that was so goofy. This whole thing with, you know, putting them in giant rabbit costumes and robots.
Right.
And fuck that. That was just retarded. So yeah, it's a horror movie, but people had very different reactions to it just in our group.
Is that like a headspace thing with your friends? Are they all like from that thing where like, oh, this is the kind of person would laugh at a funeral, or is this, you know what I'm saying?
Not necessarily. It was just it just kind of played out the way. I think the guy that, you know, kind of, you know, was a little overwhelmed by it. He was more used to like, you know, gothic Victorian horror stuff. He wasn't used to that.
Sure, yeah, the real in your face kind of schlock.
Yeah, he wasn't used to that. You know, the gal who was, you know, kind of underwhelmed by it, you know, she was much more, you know, she was a little more accustomed, you know, to, you know, the gory kind of, you know, underground cult stuff. And then to me, it's just like you're in bunny costumes. I'm sorry, you're just that's not going to scare me.
I can take it back like 1981. I remember. It was 1980. Was it 81? It was 82, 83, right around there. I'm trying to think when I saw a movie called Nightmare. And it's known all over the world. Tom Savini didn't do the effects. People watching right now would know what I'm talking about. But me and a buddy, Jamie, went on a Friday night to see this movie. Okay, and I watch it. And by then, I'd seen the Friday 13th. And now the copycats were coming. Maniac was out. Don't go in the house. These kind of things. And watch it. And it was a girl like having sex with a guy, doing a little cowgirl ride and stuff. And the guy comes in, cuts her head off. Heads across the room, blood, body still, you know, writhing from the sexual part of it all. And then the head looks over and the head opens the eyes. This guy was with Jamie, fucking lost it, freaked out. I mean, he was probably 14, 13 years old. And I'm sitting there going, what? So he went home, told his mother what I just told you guys. King and me went and saw this movie. His mom dropped us off. He was never allowed at my house again. His parents flipped out completely, and they were like, "How?" My mom was like, "Oh, Jamie's mom's on the phone." I could hear her. How the hell would you let my son go to see that? That sounds like pornography and blood. What the hell is wrong with you people? You know. But my mom was the one that got me into all of it. I mean, I'm sitting here wearing the shirt right now. Can you see it? Let me see. Am I getting close? Burn offerings. You see it?
Yeah,
that guy spooked the hell out of me in 1976. My mom took me in there. I remember I wanted to go to the car because I knew Karen Black was going to be that damn old woman in the damn house. And my mom was like looking at me like getting a chuckle out of it. Like, you know, she was the one that saw Blood Feast and 2000 Maniacs at the drive-in in the 60s. And, you know, your Rosemary's Babies, just the movies of the time. So I was like at 76 on, I was seeing them all, man. You know, Prophecy, the Mutated Bear, the Manitou, all that stuff at the drive-in the late 70s, you know, getting into the early 80s, Schizoid, Blood Beach, all that stuff. So when I'm seeing this stuff, I'm like he said, like Marty said, I'm a kid, man. and I'm like, I'm over it.
Yeah.
But then you find something later on that shocks you and gets you and hits you hard. Like for me, Johnny Got His Gun. I was telling you that before we went on here. Like that's true spooky, man. That's just spooky. You know, it's not just a weird face. It's not just something that an image. It's a vibe. It's something that gets in your blood, man, and gets you freaky. I know it does me. Stuff like that.
I will say that for me, horror movies are very much an at home. You know, we either watch streaming or, you know, the old days of Blockbuster or Family Video or whatever, going picking up a couple, you know, horror movies. But I don't know what year it happened, but they put The Exorcist back in the theaters. They redid it with, you know, highlighting some of the effects that were maybe, was that 20 years ago?
Adding the spider walk scene was basically why everybody went to see it.
Yeah, well,
me,
that was probably the last time I paid to go see a horror movie in a theater. And it was with two other friends. We've all seen The Exorcist before. And I was in a band with a guy that had a book on all the subliminal stuff that was put into that movie. There's a ton of subliminal stuff. And I think it all kind of, you know, creates the vibe and negativity of that movie, even though a lot of it's kind of schlocky, whatever. But we went to the theater and I saw crap in that movie that I never saw before on a big, humongous screen that kind of freaked me out a little bit. And after the movie, we were all walking out to the car. We all rode together. None of us were saying a damn thing. We're all quiet. It was introspective. And I'm like, dude, horror doesn't freak me out, but I'm a little freaked out from that. I mean, just seeing it big, and because I had never seen it in a theater ever. I've always seen it on video. You know, I've got the DVD of it, and you know, seeing it that huge, and actually like the face pop out on the hood of the stove, and all this crap that I never seen.
Was added. That wasn't in the original.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, that's an added. He dumped in a couple. There's a couple scenes that he superimposed things. I mean, basically, yeah, those were added. There was a bunch of stuff added, including the spider walk, which they still couldn't get exactly as they wanted it.
Yeah.
Like improvised, because for years the director said, "Oh, that was never shot. That's BS. Doesn't exist." And then someone's on a reel. Oh, it's right here, buddy. You know.
Yeah.
That's what's weird about it. But yeah, exactly. You guys were in shock. I went to see it because it's one of my favorite movies of all time, and I sat there while a bunch of kids snuck in because they'd heard about they're laughing the whole time when she calls the doctor a cunt, or let Jesus fuck you, whatever. They're laughing. I don't know if it's because they were deep down, it was creeping them out and they were trying to laugh it away, or if they were just that way. But it seems that when I go to these things they do nowadays, these novelty ones, like I went in the theater and saw Let's Scare Jessica today, which was a complete straight played horror movie. And when it was over, some of the people, like younger kids, were like, "That's it? That's all it was? That wasn't even scary at all." And I'm like, man, that's a masterpiece of mentally freak you out stuff. So maybe it's just the era I was born or something, or maybe we're all different. Because that's another thing you should talk about too, is that moving forward, that is horror the same now to the younger generations than to us, and is it the same to the people that came before us? Because I can't see me ever getting scared at Dracula or Frankenstein, but back in the day, people were passing out from that.
Too.
40 years later.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll never know how intense Black Sabbath was when it came out, I mean, we're all old enough to know, like when Van Halen came out, how intense it was. It was like the napalm death at the time. It was just insane energy and stuff like that. But a few years later, it was nothing. Look at Slayer, Show No Mercy. Used to be, holy God, how could anybody play that fast? Now you listen and it's almost slow because it's 40 years ago now.
Yeah.
Does all this stuff be part of that too? Like, what does it take to be a horror musical type thing now? Is it going to have to get like where Deceased went, like with what I'm saying, and we get away from all the, I don't know, I don't want to call it comic book, but just the cliches of it all?
Yep. Yeah, it does change. I was talking with one of our regular viewers online earlier today about, Accept, Fast as a Shark. And he was like, when that song came out, it was like a bomb going off in your house. Nobody had heard anything that crazy and fast and intense. And and then we were talking like by the end of the 80s, Accept was kind of thought of as very out of date. Oh yeah, that was like 8 years ago, man. That's not fast.
Exactly. And I guess that's the thing to anything. I mean, what is intense now? Do we have to talk about people being killed, murder, kill your family, all that kind of stuff, which we've seen more so in joking, or your SODs or things like that growing up and stuff. But like to really go down that road, you know what I'm saying? Is that is that still entertainment?
Yeah, I mean, I will say, where does it go? Where does music and horror go? I think it's been very much established here in the last 10 or so years that the metal scene loves a spectacle. They love somebody that puts on a kooky mask and dresses up and does, anonymity or, the crazy stage show. Like I picked, I don't even really care for this band, but Watain. People really like Watain, and every time someone mentions Watain, they say, "Oh my God, live!" You could smell them from the stage. I mean, they douse themselves in hog guts and go across the country without bathing. I mean, that's kind of a horror spectacle. You look at Ghost; they're one of the next big stadium bands. I mean, he's focusing on the Satanic Panic thing, which I do want to. I'll cut in here and say this: I pulled these two records because I was 14-ish when I think Don't Break the Oath came out. And the Satanic Panic, for me, I was never brought up religious, but being a child of the television era, sitting there glued, I was watching the televangelists and the news and all this stuff, and the Satanic Panic thing was a thing. And these two albums here really personify the Satanic Panic for me. You got Venom's black metal, and you got Merciful Fate, Don't Break the Oath. Both of these albums, part of the, granted, they're both kick-ass albums, 100%. Metalheads, if you're a metalhead, if you're worth your grain of salt, you got to have these records.
They're
okay?
two of the most important ones. Like, absolutely.
Two of the most important ones, but there's an atmosphere, especially Don't Break the Oath. There's this creepy, scary atmosphere that is the suspenseful horror movies of its time. You got The Omen, you got The Exorcist, you got all these fucked up, dark, Satanic Panic themed horror movies / spiritual suspenseful movies. These two albums for me were big. I mean, I would listen to this and watch Jack Van Impe. I don't know if anybody knows who the hell Jack Van Impe is, if he's just a Michigan thing, but he was a televangelist every weekend talking about the rapture and Satan. And during the 80s, he came up to our school and had a big meeting and trying to talk to people about, heavy metal and Satan. And this stuff was at the forefront of the creepy vibe. I mean, even Venom, with all their punky, their punky vibe that they had and sloppy drums,
the punky charm.
I mean, and the tongue-in-cheek vocals. But at the time, or the tongue-in-cheek lyrical concepts at the time, it was a lot scarier than it is now.
Oh, I mean, Buried Alive was spooky as hell, man.
Spooky as hell. And Sacrifice is my favorite song. Sacrifice is my favorite song on this album. But there's a ton of killers on here.
Title track, but going outside of that, Don't Burn the Witch, man.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but I just want to jump in. This is kind of where the whole thing kind of started for me.
The Oath is one of the closest things to that kind of stuff that works on almost every level down the line, from the musicianship, the songwriting, to the themes of it all, to the King Diamond stuff. They were in the zone then. I mean, there's nothing like it. I mean, we'd all agree that's one of the most important records in the history of the underground heavy metal movement.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then let me just say this while we're here. But then you got just a little earlier, a tad bit earlier, and I know this is more Alan's thing than Marty's. You also had your stuff like Witchfinder General, which had nothing spooky about it, yet it was all about burning witches, people with knives, cuts on the women on the records in a graveyard, but yet there was nothing. There it is, nothing spooky about it.
Which version are you going to show us? Are you going to show us all the versions, Alan, or just the one today?
I think this is the black vinyl version, which is actually the hardest one to find.
You have it on cassette, Alan. You seen the cassette of that before?
I have not seen an original cassette
There is
of
a
it
cassette
before.
of that.
I've heard of it, but I've never seen one.
You see what I'm saying? Now the whole, it's the same ideas. You got your cemetery, you got your virgin, and I don't know if she's a virgin.
I don't think so.
She was a playmate or penthouse pet.
Yeah, she was a model. She was just a British model that took her top off a lot. But you know what I'm saying? There's songs on there about like dying of a drug overdose, which is your Sabbath. Then you got your stuff, burning the center, all that kind of stuff's in there. But it's not spooky in the least. It's not really. Is it tongue in cheek to you?
To me, yeah. I think it very much has. It's that side of the horror. It's got it's the Hammer horror look, but yeah, it's got that real tongue in cheek element to it, which you do get a lot of horror that way.
And I tell you what, that for me, that's just as for my collection and my growing up, that's just as important a record as those other two that Marty just held up. That's a perfect 100 out of 100 for me. One of my favorite new wave British metal records.
Oh yeah.
That's while we're still there. Let's take another band. I don't know if you have the record in front of you. I know you have it. You had to. Incubus, To the Devil a Daughter.
I should have it. I used to have it, and I don't own it anymore. My bad.
You don't have it on me.
No. But yeah, no. And the reason I don't have that, actually, the reason I don't
have it on
is
me here right now.
yeah, no, I had it, but and it was one that everything about that album, when I first heard about it, screamed that it was going to be something like Witchfinder General. It had the name, it had the badass title, it's got the cover art of the girl with the demon eyes and the pentagram, the hooded figures. And I bought that record blind bought it, never heard it, expecting something like Witchfinder General meets early Satan meets early demon. And musically, it's not really like that. It's a good album, but it threw me for such a loop. I didn't get into it and ended up trading it away and then didn't get back into it until later on.
No, totally. I think that's another one. It's like you see it, you buy it. Was it just done that way to sell a record? Was it like we got to put, let's go? Okay, I'll get to something that more people would know that are watching. Hopefully, like Grim Reaper, "See You in Hell," one of the best heavy metal records of all time in my world. But did it have to be in hell? Did it have to have anything to do with hell to be the same band? I mean, everything on there starts turning into horror. There's a lot of horror themed things on there. Dead on Arrival, Wrath of the Ripper.
Again, it's during the Satanic Panic. That album came out in the hot spot, man.
There you go, Alan. Thank you.
Yeah, there's the Incubus record. Ken and I were talking about. So yeah, I mean, it's got you've got the big
never released on CD. Legit. I tried to get the rights. I talked to them. They some brothers in that band. They were turned very religious. Don't want to talk about it. Kind of how Sledgehammer became later on.
Interesting.
Kind of thing
I noticed.
They actually did record a second album, some tracks and it was called Seance. For people wondering, but they disappeared again. I think it just came out bootlegged again from Greece a couple of weeks ago on CD.
I saw a recent CD issue and was wondering if there was any.
But that's another one. And there's a couple other ones that stay under the radar that have their moments. They're not completely that way, but have some freaky stuff. Another one, Dark Heart. You remember Dark Heart?
Dark Heart sounds a lot like Incubus. Exactly. I always think of those two bands similar. They got those real singing
there's
dual
a little
guitars.
bit of eerie tones in there, but then you get Helena Troy from, Incubus goes totally way far right, but then you have songs like Highway to Hell, To the Devil a Daughter, things like that on there and stuff. Yep. So it was a lot of this. Marty, you're saying again, the Satanic Panic, which I agree with. A lot of this is this heavy metal. Either put a big bosom lady on it or something with hell. There it is. That's a damn good record, man.
It is. Yep. And
damn good record. It's cool.
Yeah, most people only know this as the worst selling record Brian Slagel ever put out through Metal Blade. He licensed it from Roadrunner, and it's always been cited as the worst selling thing he ever released.
It looks like a rejected cover from Duran Duran's Rio.
Even over Demon Flight.
Even over Demon Flight, yeah. He somewhere once upon a time I read I think he cited that they literally barely moved 500 copies of this or something. It was just ridiculous.
That is what I was going to say when you said that. I was waiting to hear what you were going to say was the answer. That's one that sat in the record bins everywhere for the cheapest of prices forever and a day. Good record though. That's another one. We could name more. Maybe we'll go as we go. But let's go to See You in Hell. That thing sold and sold and sold. They got on MTV. They sold more. They got signed to RCA off of Ebony Records. And all of a sudden that band went on. And then it seemed like everything they did going forward, Fear No Evil, Rock You to Hell, it all still kept that formula format, Marty.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Did they have to? I mean, was that just because they weren't? In no way were those guys evil or spooky.
No.
They were damn good. I mean, I would say they put out 3 fantastic heavy metal records early on. Those records, they're
yeah. I will say Steve Grimmett in that giant orange jumpsuit in the video was kind of terrifying. So
I'll give you that.
Little horrifying there.
I'll give you that.
Yeah, but no, you're right. There was nothing horror about them. I always kind of figured maybe the album titles, it was just meant to tie in with the band name, that they're calling themselves Grim Reaper, so they're kind of trying to have a little bit.
I think a lot of bands did that too, like Hammer, which I put out, Contract with Hell, like that. Like that, did that need to be there? Because the album was nothing like that. I mean, they were more like, they had more in common with Y&T than Venom. You know what I'm saying? And then you had like your Blaspheme from France and things like that with the crosses and stuff. It all starts coming together. I know we're skipped over our 70s and we're spooking by all that stuff, which I don't want to forget because one of the spookiest songs ever written, still played every day, and people sing along and love the hell out of it. Don't Fear the Reaper. It's one of the eeriest, most haunting things ever made.
That song sounds nothing like the rest of the album. There's not a damn song on that album that sounds like. If that whole album sounded like Don't Fear the Reaper, how fucking awesome would that have been? Seriously.
Cool album.
It's still a cool
you
album.
they have two real spooky tunes for me. That one and Joan Crawford. Those are the two. And really the Joan Crawford middle part makes that. But Don't Fear the Reaper has got to be one of the most haunting things I've ever heard. And then outside the box for a second, I was talking about this on Facebook maybe a year and a half ago. One of the most morbid songs I've ever heard is California Dreamin'. Okay, for me, it to me is what we talked about earlier, where it takes that into the 60s. Manson's here, moving into the 70s. They try to make it like I wish I was there. It's so melancholic to the point, to me, it's one of the most eerie, creepy songs I've ever heard.
Well, that Brian Wilson, he had a very dark, screwed up childhood.
Well, you're off now. You're John Phillips. But
really?
Brian
He was
Wilson had a hell of a problem too later on. But John Phillips for Mamas and the Papas.
Oh, right on. Oh, is that what that was? Right on.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was thinking that was.
Hey,
I was thinking that was Beach Boys.
They're all screwed up in the head, man.
Yeah.
You can fall off either way. But you know that like something like that, and then that it kind of gives me the vibe of the Don't Fear the Reaper later on, because it's a love song in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways it's spooky. Whenever it plays, it's spooky.
Yeah. There are a few bands from that era too. That's a good example with California Dream. There's a few, Grassroots, had some songs that they're good pop songs, but they do have that little, kind of melancholy little. There's a somberness when you're paying attention to it,
which to me is amazing when that happens.
Yeah, it works really well.
There was a girl, a woman. Her name was Sister Janet Mead, and she did a cover of the Lord's Prayer, and she kind of like early 70s popped it up. She made it so spooky. I still can't listen to the phased out guitar. It spooks me out. It really does. It spooks me out. And I was going to ask you guys a question next. Out of all the music you've ever heard in your life, from being a kid to today, what is there a song that really spooks you, or something in a song that really spooks you? I'll just give you mine, let you think for a minute. Mine has always been the ending keyboard run in Lucky Man from Emerson, Lake and Palmer. That last little freak out at the end of that song, it scared me when I was a kid. I can remember like hearing it. And then years later, I remember I was with this was so weird. I was with my mother and her girlfriend from work, and we went to her apartment, and they wanted to talk amongst each other. So I went in the room, and then she had some records, so I started putting them on. And I didn't even know who this was when I was a kid. And I put on the Emerson, Lake and Palmer first record, and that came on. And I'm getting the hairs on my arms now standing up, you can see, because it was so spooky to me. It's certain noises, even the synthesizer on Magic Man, the middle part, that it must be something in the synth for me that does it as an instrument. That's something spooky. But I would always say Lucky Man. The ending of Lucky Man is something that's always been extremely eerie to me. I don't know if it just brings out the boogeyman in me or stuff. But what about you guys?
I can go, Alan.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm typing in the chat, so yeah, go right ahead.
I mean, it was this album here. I mean, like I said, I did not grow up religious, but it was this album and a couple others that made me think the devil was real. And it was the vocal melodies on Night of the Unborn, just the weird. It just was so unique from anything else and creepy as shit.
I'm glad you said that song. That's a standout track for me.
It's a standout track, and I also really like the proclamation at the beginning of the oath. Where he's talking by the symbol of the Creator, I will swear henceforth to be. That whole thing. Again, a child. I was 14 when this record came out, and it freaked me the fuck out. I'm not gonna lie, and I'm like, this is awesome.
It hasn't stayed with you for the years. Someday it was no longer that way to you.
I mean, it ends up me being, kind of drunk air guitaring to it. I mean, you've heard it so many times. The fear is gone, and it's just kind of, this is amazing.
Just before you go, Alan, I just want to say one thing. Okay, so I was going to an October 31 one night, and I was taking back our drummer and our guitar player. And right when I was about to drop them off at this Kiss and Go subway where they left their car, right when they got out, Lucky Man came on. Okay, and it was about 12:30 at night. I'm getting ready to drive from Maryland to Pennsylvania, the back dark roads at 1 o'clock, on coming home. And it came on, and when that part came on, it still spooked me out. And this was like just a few years ago. So it's still got that hold on whatever it was as a kid that unleashes that I don't want to say fear, but just spookiness to it. I don't know what it is. I mean, some people hear it and they're like, what, doesn't do anything for me? And I guess everybody has their own thing,
I've got one more to add, and it was a buddy of mine, Scott. We would drive around the 8th Street Cemetery here in Traverse City. It's a big cemetery, big humongous stones in town. listening to Onslaught's the Force. I think it's that almost it just the full moon shining in the graveyard. I mean, just there's some riffs and some moments on that. That's another Satanic Panic album for me. I love that record. I love that record. Great record. Yeah, Let There Be Death. Lightning strikes the middle of death. Panic ones below. Ugh. That's another one that gives me chill. I hear it today. If I'm in the right mood, neck hairs go up. It's like I remember driving around that cemetery at night, listening to that tape and going, wow, this is evil. I'm such a bad boy listening to this record, you know. How about you, Al?
A couple stick out. Two in general are one, Cemetery's Evil Shade of Gray. Just the weird warbly guitar tone on that. I just remember there was one time in particular, I was at college and had thrown it in the Walkman while I had like a late chemistry lab or something. So it's like 9:30 at night. It's Ohio, so it's been dark since like 2:00 in the afternoon because it's the dead of winter. And I was listening to that on the Walkman walking across campus and just really got freaked the fuck out. It's just like every bush, every building, just like, so I'm not getting back to the dorm. Something bad's going to happen here any minute. I'm
not going to make it.
That album's just got, such a real creepy sound in the guitar. So that's one.
Alan blowing. I could just had a vision of Alan running through the courtyard blowing his rape whistle.
Where's the blue light? Where's the blue light? Gotta call the safety bus. Is someone bothering you? Yes. Is this guy in Sweden? The way he plays guitar, it bothers me. Another one that I've always thought is very creepy and eerie sounding is Beharit's Drawing Down the Moon. It's got just such a murky, low sound, and it goes so slow. And just, it's just this very slow, deep tone. And one time just like listening to it, and it was pouring rain outside, really one of those, just the whole sky is just dark, pounding rain, wind. And I was just playing it in the background. I hadn't meant to. It was just, that's what I was happened to be listening to. And just like, you really start like checking the windows and doors. It's just like, that's just really creepy album.
So for both of you guys, it's been more of a sound of a record than a part of a record.
Atmosphere gets me, man. It's the atmosphere.
Atmosphere of it. Okay, I get you.
Atmosphere can. There's one particular song or one part of one song I did think of, King. It's a song by The Cure on Pornography called Cold. That whole album is pretty creepy to begin with.
That's a good record. If you're into that
great
stuff,
album. It's a fantastic album, but it's got a very harsh production. The drums really just, there's like poking into your brain. They're very sharp sounding. But yeah, in the song Cold, there's a verse, and they repeat it a couple times. The lyrics are, I had to pull up the lyrics, but yeah, it's a shallow grave, a monument to the ruined age, ice in my eyes, and eyes like ice don't move. And that verse in particular has always bothered me.
That's kind of a tongue twister, man. Can you imagine trying to sing that shit?
but I mean, it's very smoothly delivered on the album. Robert Smith, it's just, metered out very evenly, but just, eyes like ice, don't move. And it's just like, it's really just like, you're just picturing, someone just, a frozen, corpse, staring at you with this, very, harsh production on, the music in the background. It's just that part that is always just, I love it, but it does kind of give me the screaming willies.
when you're saying like this stuff, like Beharit, this like more extreme stuff, like I'm in Emerson like a bomber, and he's kind of still in heavy metal world. You're like this stuff, you gotta Beharit and stuff like that. The only thing I can think of, anything that was kind of spooky to me, was on that debut Winter record when they had that part. I think it was in that song Eternal Frost, where the guy's like he was talking underneath the floor. It was a part I don't know what he was saying, but I always thought that I can't even tell you what the name. I think it was that song. What was that record called? Into Darkness.
Into Darkness.
Yeah, that was a good. That was a good. I'm not a big guy on slower stuff, but there was a part on that record where it was like they were like something like listening, and somebody was under the floor talking to me while it was going on. But it was in the record, of course. That's about as close as that. One more thing I was going to ask you too is anything ever set you off that somebody told you? Like for me, I don't know if you guys remember this legend growing up, but the story behind the Ohio Players Love Roller Coaster. where supposedly someone was murdered while the record was made, and they left the scream on the record. Of course, the scream the whole time was somebody screaming for being on the roller coaster, but that was his story as a kid. So whenever it plays on the radios, even now, then it goes, ah! It sounds like somebody's being murdered, but it's someone going, yeah, riding a coaster. That was something too. Like, it was any songs that were like legendary. Do you like people go back to the DOA Blood Rock is like when I was a kid. You couldn't listen to that. It was about death.
There was a country song that was, my dad was a big country guy, and there was a song, I don't know the name, I can't remember the name of the song. The whole world calls me Hank. I mean, it's like about a guy that picks up a hitchhiker. It's Hank Williams, and he talks about Hank Williams, and then you like hear in the background like this sound. There was like this thing that they're saying as soon as Hank Williams was mentioned, there was like an ambulance sound that came out, and it was caught on tape, but there was no reported ambulances in the area at that time. They thought that was like a Hank. And then always kind of, and every time I'd hear that fucking song on the radio, I'd listen. And you could actually hear it, like after he says, "Mister, don't call me Mister. The whole world calls me Hank." I mean, there's like this whole part in there where you hear like that siren in the background. I'm like, holy shit, what the fuck is that?
That's cool, man.
Shit like that. I wish I could remember the name of that.
These legends, like people say, like you hear the door before the lead on "Beat It" from Michael Jackson.
Yeah,
Van Halen opened the door before he did the lead. No, it's you know what I'm saying? But that's what I'm talking about. Like the Love Roller Coaster when I was a kid, that was a big deal. People would listen to it over and over and over. It's like people trying to play Led Zeppelin backwards on Stairway to Heaven and hearing, all the satanic things. Here's to my sweet Satan and all that shit.
Yeah.
I've actually got a 7-inch somebody pressed. I've had this thing 35 years. The song is pressed backwards. It's basically a 7-inch Stairway to Heaven backwards. And you can hear it. You can hear anything you want to hear if you really want to.
Sure.
Now we're in the Judas Priest courtroom. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Those were always the rumors I heard as a kid. Yeah,
the
Priest and Ozzy, backwards lyrics and stuff.
I'll be right back. I have to use the little boys' room.
Yep, sure.
But
folks were always, and there were kids in my school that, they were afraid to listen to Ozzy Osbourne because of all these, stories about, backwards messages and subliminals that were going to make you kill yourself. There was, Priest, that one came up a little later when they got sued. But I feel like even before that, there were rumors about there being subliminals in Beyond the Walls of Death, which, incredible song, but that was another one because it was kind of about somebody eventually just deciding to go ahead and die, and that's there was supposed to be a message in the song that was also making you want to
another thing about that stuff that works for me is that it wasn't during my time. I was alive in the world, but I wasn't. When I hear music that comes out now, it doesn't. It's like I got the trick of what it is. I've been doing this a while myself. I get what they were doing, but when you hear this stuff that's older than you, it's almost like black and white movies. There's a different vibe to it because it's long ago. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and even if it wasn't long ago, when you're a kid, it all feels like ancient history.
Exactly.
Like when I was a kid, Vietnam seems like it was something that happened 500 years ago. But looking back on it, Lord, it was, not even a decade.
Right.
It had just ended. But to me, it might as well have been a century ago. At the time, you don't realize how recent some of that stuff is.
I think we should, when Marty comes back, we should give a little time to Alice Cooper, man. I think he was one of the, I think he pushed it before Kiss. I mean, obviously when Kiss gets into it, Kiss was never, people thought they were satanic and horror and all that stuff.
Knights in Satan's service.
Exactly. But I think Alice Cooper, again, he had, with what we were talking, Marty, I said, when you came back, we should give a little time to Alice Cooper more so with that era, because the difference between him and Kiss was they both were rock and rollers at heart. That's all they really were.
Yeah.
But Kiss tried to come out and be for Alice Cooper's, but the difference between them was Alice Cooper really had a problem at that time. He was really almost between his drugs and drinking, mental illness. He really was in spooky land. If you take a song like Steven from Welcome to My Nightmares, it's filled. It's spooky as hell. It's very spooky. A lot of that stuff. And his show, we know he had the giant toothbrush and things like that and the snakes, but just the beheading things and things. Now the music, it does have a little bit of it, but again, it's not all there. That's why I say I don't think anybody's had it all. Somebody's come very close. I would say that Merciful Fate you showed up might be the closest I can think of, where it was all very close there. You know, and the themes, the songs, the talent, just the image and the delivery. You know what I'm saying? Alice Cooper had his time where he was the shock rock god of the world, and people, you look back at those videos he shot from those times, those concert films.
Yeah, there's some of that footage is it's creepy with him being led up to the guillotine and being hanged and all that stuff.
Nightmare record. I don't think he's that creepy.
No. I just want to say real quick, thank you, Festered Offals. The name of the song is The Ride. I can't remember the performer, but I'm glad someone else. I mean, that is younger. That freaked me out a little bit. And I will say, I know Kiss tried to borrow a lot from Alice Cooper, which is another fellow Michigan guy, Vincent Vernier. Right. I'm not a big Alice Cooper fan, but I do respect what he's done. And listening to, the music during his heyday, he had a great songwriter in the band. They had a great band. Kiss. I love Kiss, man. I grew up with Kiss. Kiss is my ride or die, but they couldn't really hang with the band that Alice Cooper was. I mean, that's just me. Musically,
but to me, I think they have at least 75 more songs that were catchy than Alice Cooper.
True. I mean, if they came more from
talent-wise, not in league.
Talent-wise, no, but they had they borrowed a lot more from the English, power pop rock type of thing. But Kiss had the catchiness, but Alice Cooper, I think, had the chops.
I also want to say this. I think if Kiss had stayed with that less colorful image of the early days, we'll say Kiss Alive back, they were pretty spooky. They looked weird. I mean, their shows were spooky. Their makeup was very dark and black and very, black metal-ish before black metal. And then it was decided about 76 with Destroyer when the new costumes, they were still black, a little silver and things like that, but it just got colorful. Very colorful. Because if you look at the early days, I mean, they had naked women and there's things. I mean, it wasn't like when it turned into like for kids and like, young adults.
The Dynasty era. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because by Dynasty, it was like a Las Vegas show.
Festered Offals, that was a David Allan Coe song. I did not know that. Yeah, it kind of blows. It's a good song. It's a good song.
Oh, and by the way, Marty, while you were gone, me and Alan both gave you 2.25 stars on Star Search for your country delivery.
I wasn't ready. I hadn't warmed up properly. That wasn't a fair assessment of my talent. I'm just going to say that. I'm gonna put. I was nervous. The camera was on. All that.
You've also forfeited at least 12 of your true heavy metal street cred points. So
that's okay. There's people that it was good enough for them to tell me what the hell the song was. So fuck you guys.
I think that was you going off to your other screen typing to yourself.
Marty, you're so smart and talented and good looking. Wow, what a great show.
Marty had to go dust off his cowboy boots.
Marty's my favorite guy on the show.
Hell yeah.
Alice Cooper was important, but then he started falling apart, and we know Kiss went colorful. So who carried it then? Who carried it from the late 70s into the 80s when it became what it is? I mean, who was carrying it then? What was there?
Well, it changed. I mean, music started to get more. The 80s, as far as the metal realm, it started to get more like we showed Venom, we showed Merciful Fate.
Those were Iron Maiden.
Maiden. I mean, Maiden were never creepy or scary to me. They were never creepy or scary to me, but they were very.
They had a lot of songs. I mean,
they had songs that were based on.
You had your Phantom of the Opera. You had definitely hints to it. And I think Number of the Beast it got a couple. Hallowed Be Thy Name's got some spooky Twilight Zone moments to it.
Yeah,
I can remember sitting in my basement buying that record, and my mom had one of those big stereos that had the whole was as big as a couch, and I dropped that thing, and I'd look at that Eddie spin around. It was two different the labels on the thing, and I'd be in the really dark lit basement listening to stuff like that, and and Children of the Damned, which to me is their greatest song they ever did. We've talked about that before. That's a pretty damn cool horror spooky type tune.
You want to talk about
they don't have a lot. And what I was going to say was they stepped away from it very quickly.
That era and the shock rock type of vibe, I'm going to put this out there and I'm going to probably get eyes rolled, but Motley Crue Shout the Devil. I would say they got the makeup or whatever. They got the pentagram on their cover. I think it kind of nodded the shock rock to a lowest common denominator rock thing.
Yeah, about like 7-Eleven heavy metal.
Right, exactly. But I mean, that was like, I remember the Satanic Panic shit. Those guys are always mentioned, and they're always fucking pictures shown of them.
Let's say this, because this is going around now on the Facebook. Vince Neil saying they were doing that satanic stuff before anybody. It's a known fact because Nikki Sixx admitted it a couple of times. They stole that pentagram idea from 45 Graves Black Cross 7-inch and stuff. So they kind of went that angle. I thought it was kind of weird how at that time, that's like when that Satanic Panic came, everybody clamored to it. Like you were saying, it was like all of a sudden you needed to have something like that. You needed to be an outcast to be known. It was, very few bands didn't go that route. I mean, you had a couple bands. You had your Def Leppard, which totally went a whole new route, and Quiet Riot was sat there for a little while, and Rat and Dokken were secondary and all that. But like you had your Motley Crue, and you had your Venoms, you had your Witchfinder Generals, and you had these like these takeoffs of that stuff going forward in heavy metal. You know what I'm saying? Stuff that was one and done type of stuff. You can look at that. You can look at Exorcist, Nightmare Theater, something like that. It was just done to do it. It never meant anything in the scheme of things. But this gets me to the next idea in my mind is, so what is this, because this is what the kids wanted? Like you were saying earlier, you want shock with everything you get. There's got to be some kind of like electric shock back at you. Like, was it not cool to go by Out of the Cellar as much as it was Shout at the Devil at the time? You know what I'm saying? Were you more of an outcast? Like, this is the good, like Slayer, Metallica. You see what I'm saying? Like these kids were a little bit more intense than the Metallica kids. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Did you see any of that? You remember any of that kind of thing? I do.
Go ahead, Al.
Oh, I was just gonna say I'm just a few years too young to have registered it as a kid. By the time my classmates and I were paying attention to it, it had all become commonplace enough. But actually, there was still a little. But yeah, just a few years later, after the Shout at the Devil example, a big one for like my class was Poison's Slip of the Tongue coming out. Or no, sorry, not Slip of the Tongue. Open Up and Say Ah, which horrible album.
You get 5 heavy metal points for getting that wrong first try.
I was gonna say, you're giving me shit.
Yes, because nobody should know the name of Poison.
I gave him 5 points positive for not knowing that. I deduct 10 for me from in my mind going, that's not the right title, Alan. So fuck me. You're up 5 points, Alan. Sorry.
Yeah, there was a there was a big hubbub about the cover art of that album being too satanic, and it was recalled, and the tongue was
Poison
out. Yes, yeah. Open Up and Say Ah. It was. That. What about freaked people out? That just the cover.
What about your Wasp and the Cod Piece and Fuck Like a Beast and PMRC and Tippy.
But yeah, with Poison, it was specifically satanic concerns, PMRC and all that kind of stuff, because the color scheme on the cover, the character looked kind of demonic and the long tongue, and they had to recall that album and put a black. That's why most copies of it you see, there's just like a black bar across the bottom and top, and it's just zeroed in on the eyes, because they had to edit it. I know my sister, wanted the original copy really bad, and she had to talk to mom and dad. She didn't try to sneak it in. She's like, "Is it okay if I get this?" My parents were looking at us like, "Yeah, why are you asking us this?" So she kind of, she was straight with them. She kind of explains like, "Well, there's a big stink about it, being satanic." They're like, "Is it satanic?" She's like, "No, it's like Bon Jovi music on the radio." And they're like, I think they may have even listened to a song. I'm just like, "Oh, buy it. We don't care."
Then they asked her, "Why do you want this?"
Yeah, my dad's just like, "That sounds like shit to me, but if you want, I have no objection to you buying it because of the cover."
Okay, here we go. We're gonna use Wasp and Motley Crue as the examples. As soon as there's Satanic Panic, Shout the Devil, there they are. It worked. Got them out there. Everybody's loving it. Wasp, it worked. Then all of a sudden you get from Motley Crue. Where are you at now? Where do you go? Totally away from that immediately. Yep. Wasp, even totally different.
Yeah.
That quick. It's like a 1 album thing.
Yep. Didn't
stick with it. No longevity for those type of things. Moved on to something else.
Yep.
That was with most. I mean, Venom made it a career. Slayer for many years went that route.
Yeah, they stuck with it.
Even Slayer kind of got away from it eventually.
I will say, I don't want to jump off this topic, but I posted up the GG point because punk does have a play in this. I'm sure Al is going to mention the Misfits, but GG Allen to me wasn't shock rock. It was just mental illness. That to me, I was never a big GG fan. I don't know, man. Anyway, and the Mentors as well, mental illness and drug addiction.
Yeah. But there are other punk bands besides Misfits. Folks have been mentioning in the chat earlier, like the Cramps, with kind of horror psychobilly stuff.
45 Grave was the horror punk.
45 Grave
to me. But let's all another thing you got to look at if we're going to go down this thing. You got to start thinking about all the goth too.
Yes, the death rock as it was called.
Bauhaus, Sisters of Mercy,
Christian Death.
Christian Death. Yep.
Black
I mean, it was all in
Virgin
there.
kind of in there a little bit.
Susie and the Banshees
Those
to a certain
people-
extent.
I think those people, a lot of the people in the goth world were more locked into what I was saying earlier about like the later deceased stuff. They may have had a lot of depression in them and thoughts of death, or someone in their, you know, something closer to this than not so much as a schlock thing or a shock thing, but as legitimately, you know, in their bloodstream, in their world. I think a lot of that, you know, obviously anything with time, people were just throwing the makeup on and trying to be something they weren't. But I think a lot of that early stuff was pretty damn spooky in its own way too, in a different way. I don't know if it's because they usually use a lot more synthesizers and things. Even your new wave, you know, which would have that sound to it, just because it was eerie. We talked about this one of these episodes we were on, where I was talking about the early '80s eerie rock songs, you know, that had that spooky vibe to them, whether it be like Lunatic Fringe from Red Rider would be one of them, you know, or like Red Skies from The Fix. They're very spooky songs.
Yeah, Red Sky. Yeah, that's a good song.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's horror tinged, but is it more so in a soundtracky horror thing than so much? I mean, those songs were about dark things.
They're about dark things, but it's kind of funny that, you know, it's funny you mentioned like The Fix with the horror connotation attached to it. It just doesn't seem. It just doesn't seem. It might be, but it just doesn't seem right. Am I right?
I agree with you, but I'm saying they had that. They had those sounds within there that even bands like Bloister Cult and stuff started to go to. Like you look, I mean, Fire of Unknown Origin's my record, but if you listen to it, it's very freaky in a lot of ways, but it's almost pop new wave at times on that record. You can sit there and go through songs like that, you know. So that what I'm trying to do is get from that late '70s when Alice Cooper took up to here. You sort of had this thing, even stuff like oh man, what's an example? I can't really give you one, but just that synth vibe of the early '80s, those bands at the time. I don't want to say like Human League and stuff, but even Flock of Seagulls, that those keyboards was something new to the sound. I'm not saying it was all horror, but that's kind of the things that kind of I figured kind of brought into it more. So if you think of songs, I could name bands that probably people ain't gonna know, like, you know, Number with Wings from the Bongos. That's another song. It's very haunting if you play it, and you're like, man, there's something spooky. Even for example, Rockwell. I always feel like somebody's watching me. It's really an eerie pop song if you listen to it. Next time you guys listen to it. It really is. It's spooky in a different way. There's a lot of stuff like that. Go back to the Doors, Riders on the Storm. It's haunting as hell.
It's the Doors had their creepy moments for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you know,
the Police said, you know, of course, you know,
Earth, things like that. And again, I think the Doors were creepy because of the keyboards. So I'm getting now to the instrumentation of it all.
Part of it,
I think that's a big thing. Just certain keyboard notes can make it or break it. I think that's a very important part of that Don't Break the Oath record too.
Yep.
Some of those keyboards that are playing behind a lot of that stuff.
The harpsichord sound or whatever the hell keyboards they're using. Yep.
I mean, one of the biggest hits of the '80s, you know, the Police.
Yes.
And you know, the music in that, just, you know, that very simple, you know, little guitar or bass line, you know, that goes, you know, it's a very simple song, but it has that, you know, it works as a pop song, but it also, it has a very dark undertone to it.
Which song are you talking about?
Outside of metal, but you know, everybody that's at metal's got their other shirts. You know, we got plenty of Police people that wear the Police shirts and all that shit, and the ELP like myself. Blah blah. It all comes together.
What song are you talking about, Alan? The Police song.
Oh, I'll Be Watching You. Okay,
I was thinking like on Synchronicity, the song Synchronicity 2, that has a very creepy vibe to it.
Yeah.
There's a creepy vibe on that song. I always that was like my favorite song on that album because of the creepy vibe on that album, on that song. But yeah. A lot of folks in the chat tonight. Thank you so much. We almost hit 100 at one point, and I'm having a hard time keeping up with your comments. I'm so sorry, people. I'm trying to be in the conversation and appeal to you guys' conversation and share it. I'm not keeping up very well.
Well, Star Search gives you a perfect 4 stars for that.
Wait a minute. Let's try it again. The whole world, wrong one. The whole world called me hand. Is that better?
I got a new favorite horror rock tune. Marty.
Yeah.
No, I think all this I mean, going outside the box and you could I could bring you to Legend of the Woolly Swamp from Charlie Daniels. We could go outside Tales of Horror inside of music, anything like that. But sticking with metal, like I don't know if do we go underground here again? Overkill had the Halloween riff in there, but they were never horror metal. I mean, I guess when they came out, they really did have the eye makeup and
the capes.
They had
Dan Spitz in the cape.
Yeah, exactly. Dan Spitz in the cape. Exactly, things like that. And
that's a whole other kind of horror.
I think they tried to make the eeriest album, Necrophagia. Again, we're back to that. Some of those early records and stuff, the Show No Mercy record that came out.
Well, I pulled a couple. Well, Necrophagia.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, I don't have a ton of Necrophagia. Was never a big band for me.
No, you're right. I got you.
Death is Fun was cool, but as they went on, I cared less and less once Phil got involved in the band and stuff. But
but Killjoy always in the interviews he would always talk horror movies.
Always, and they always had the samples.
That's why I give them the props for that.
Okay, here's another one. I always associated these guys with horror.
Absolutely.
Impetigo.
Fucking Horror of the Zombies. Man.
Horror of the Zombies and Mondo Cannibal Bazaar, and I've got a 7-inch. I got some other crap by these guys. I mean, yeah, it was. Was Steve-O? Was that his guy's name behind this?
Absolutely, Steve-O and Mark. Absolutely.
Chicago-based band. They were back in the early 90s. This shit was really kind of groundbreaking and killer. It was just fun, aggressive killer.
But
old school.
Let me ask you a question. Does the music scare you?
No, not at all.
Something like that. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's more done as a tribute to the things they love too in their world. Also horror movies. Me and Steve-O used to trade all the time. These horror movies, the deep cut stuff that wasn't available back then hardly at all.
Yep.
Now that's got its place. Again, I'm going to keep coming back to Hallows Eve. That horror metal. It did never take off like I thought it would. There was a few bands. I remember Vacant Grave trying to have the the horror thing. And Alan, what do you think about those times? I know that wasn't your era at the moment growing up, but I know those times from looking back.
Yeah, there were a lot of bands that tried it, but you're also right, King, that it doesn't seem like any bands or you're hard pressed to think of bands that really stuck to it and made it work long term. Here's one that someone mentioned in the chat earlier. We haven't talked about it yet, but I know you'll know it, King. Ripper and the Dead Shall Rise.
Awaits you.
Yeah,
that's a great song, but I don't think that whole record's that way though.
They look like a band.
Yeah, the album, it's they're going for very much. Again, this is almost maybe more on the Addams Family kind of side of horror, where it's got the gothy look and the very kind of black humor to it. But yeah, it's not gory. It's not up in your face or anything. The album, it has a cult following, but
speaking of other bands with one-offs, kind of like that, what about Halloween?
From Detroit area. Don't meddle with evil and all that stuff. Yeah. I mean, Michigan represent.
Detroit's horror show. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And they were going for they took the look kind of in a different way. They went for a little bit more of the glam shock rock kind of look rather than the Morticia Adams look that Ripper had used.
Okay, but I'm going to ask the same question I keep asking. Was that record scary to you? Not me.
No, it's not. I mean, it's
not
definitely.
In any way, is it spooky?
No, it's not spooky. It's the songs are spooky themed. You've got Trick or Treat, and
I mean, you tongue in cheek.
But yeah, it's the. It's a little bit more on the campy side of horror. It's the Friday the 13th from the middle of the 80s type of horror where it's supposed to say boo and you jump maybe a little bit and you laugh and that's it. There's not a deep hardcore scare meant to go on here. But yeah, they've got a theme. They've got an image that they're playing, and they're trying to tie it all together. So I think it definitely counts as horror metal. But is it scary horror? No.
I don't think you can get scary. I don't think you can get scary without atmosphere. Like I keep going back to Don't Break the Oath. That's where it all kind of congeals perfectly. You've got dark, twisted kind of lyrical themes for the time, very scary, and the Satanic Panic, satanic. It felt like real Satanism. And then you add, keyboards and really, dark minor scales and that falsetto vocal style of King Diamond. It sounded unholy. I mean, let's be honest.
No, you're right. It's a perfect. I agree.
It's a perfect combination. And when you start it, like when you say, is that album scary? It's not. And a lot of death metal and stuff. Here's a successor to Impetigo. I mean, it's kind of the same deal, just more brutal. Will and Rod,
with a lot
they basically, there's more horror movie samples on here than actual music. Let's be honest. It's kind of their shtick. And I've never been a huge Mortician fan. I respect them. I mean, those guys have been at it for fucking ever. And it's kind of a one-trick pony thing. I liked Impetigo's music a lot better, but they're kind of straddling the same kind of path. They're very focused on horror, and the sample becomes the biggest point of the song. But
well, now that leads to something I wanted to ask Marty, because looking up different bands this week, I would just when I had some time, would type in horror metal to Google and see what kind of bands it would spit out. It spit out a bunch of them that I had never heard of. When I would go play some clips by them on YouTube, a lot of them were kind of in that Mortician vein, where the song would start out with one or maybe a collage of clips from horror movies, but then once the music got going, it just sounded like pretty straightforward death metal or pretty straightforward slam. I'm thinking of bands like Fulci was one of them. VHS was another one. And is having horror clips worked in, does that qualify you as a horror metal band if there's nothing else about your sound that's any different from standard death metal or standard slam? Is that all it takes? Is just adding in a few clips from Evil Dead and some other underground stuff?
These days, I'm
asking because I don't know.
I think these days probably most people gravitate towards that because it's the lowest common denominator. This is what we are. It's putting out there, this is what we are, even though their music really isn't scary, and it really, if you look at death metal bands that are in the gore, look at Cannibal Corpse lyrics, you look at any sort of death metal band that sings about misogyny or slasher type stuff, it's all its own B-grade horror movie. It's like the shit you find in Walmart for $5 in the DVD bin. That's what that stuff is. Is any of it scary? It is not. None of it. There's nothing terrifying or scary about it.
And that for me, in a nutshell, is like, that's what I'm looking for. That's what we've been trying to make Deceased for a couple albums now, is the spooky band.
Yeah.
Like, where if we're going to tell a story about something spooky, this is the thing, as an arranger and a creator of the music along with the other guys, can we make the music fit the story and not just tell the story over whatever riffs we created?
I think you guys have got the vibe. You just need keyboards.
See, you think it needs keys. See, for me,
that helps.
I'm looking at everything we've ever done. I'm looking at everything we've ever done, and I would say there's a couple songs where we got it completely right. Just a couple.
Yeah, they're there. I'm not saying they're not. They're there.
I'm not giving us 4 stars from the Star Search. I think a very familiar stranger from Supernatural Addiction is one that the story goes exactly where it's supposed to go. Every riff fits the tone of the part of the song. I think Fright from As the Weird Travel On is another one that does that. And I think Mrs. Allardyce from the last one, Ghostly White. That's 3 songs I'm very proud of that do what I want to do. I would love to be able to say do a whole 8 to 10 song album where that happens. I'm hoping with the new record, which we're working on now, that it's something like that. But I can't name. I was sitting there where you were going through the stuff saying Merciful Fate. I think so far to date that would be the closest thing to anything in the metal genre. If I was to go by a song that's pretty intense and spooky to me, I think I would harken back to Sign of the Southern Cross from Black Sabbath.
Oh,
I think it's one of the darkest, most
so good,
intense, and things there is. That's one, and maybe some of the deeper cuts on like King of the Dead from Sir Thungol. Here's another one. Here's another one that just popped into my head, because it isn't because of keyboards. It's the riffs and the intent and the story behind the song Mrs. Victoria by Warlord. Yes. Perfect.
That song has got the evil riffs.
That's a perfect horror. That's a horror tale.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's not what they do 99% of the time, 90% of the time. But perfect. Great example.
Traditional metal made scary. I mean, that's Halloween Halloween never got there. They were more shock rock, it's some cool heavy metal. Don't get me wrong, but you know, you listen to Mrs. Victoria by Warlord, and that's a creepy fucking song.
And
It just is.
When the song's over, it stays with you.
Yeah,
that's important to me, and that's what I'm saying with those songs. And that's something I've wanted to do. Like with Deceased, I always tell the guys, I'm looking for this. Like we just were writing 2 days ago, and I'm telling them this is what I'm talking. You know, what I want, what I need, and stuff. And we're getting there, and it's going to take our whole lifetime. We'll never do it, but that's what we're going for.
That's the fun. It's the chase.
Yeah, I mean, in no way are we there. We're not even close. I'm not sitting here to say, you know, we look at me. It's not that. I think out of everything we've done, we've got 3, maybe a 4th one. If I really looked at everything deeper, that really got what I really, really wanted out of it. You know, and I'm happy to say that, because starting when you're a kid and you're, you know, it's gut wrench, it's about grave robbing, or, you know, sick thrash. Oh, we're a thrash band and we're sick. You know, it's like you said, 7-Eleven, you know, $5 Walmart DVD shit.
Yeah.
If you can and I thought about getting intellectual or talented or you know, beyond what you started with. It's still keeping that intensity that you brought the band together for. I mean, we're almost to 40 years now, and I mean, it's still the same thing when we write. You know, it's still that kind of you know, passion. It's just now you're like, oh, we can't do that. You know, I remember when we did Supernatural Addiction, people said, oh, man, they're trying to be like In Flames now. No, we weren't.
Where the hell they get In Flames from?
It was just because there was harmonies in there. They're like, well, what are all these harmonies? Like, well, we can play them now. We don't want to just fake it. There you go, Black Hole.
Yeah, some folks have been asking, Falafel and Smothers been asking me, like, the Italian Doom stuff. That whole scene always had a real creepy vibe to it compared to
Black
others.
Hole, Death SS, Paul Chain, all that.
Yep.
I know you're going to pull them out. Go ahead, Alan. You take charge here.
Oh yeah, just I mean, even, you know, the picture on the back cover with you, they're all standing around, you know, the child's coffin. Just
I would say Italy might be the forefront of a lot of that kind of creepy rock.
Yeah, they always seem to have more of that.
Well, Death SS, is it? They're Italian too, right?
Yeah, Death SS.
Death SS, yeah, is kind of the one. You know, they're the godfathers of Italian death.
Singles.
This has a singles collection, but let's get a couple of them out just to show off, because, you know, they kind of combined the, you know, theatricality of Alice Cooper.
Yes,
but made music that did really sound a lot more eerie and you know, creepy. But, you know, they went for kind of, you know, the classic, you know, monster movie makeup.
No, it's cool.
Pseudo goth.
There's a goth angle to it. There's obviously, you know, Alice Cooper angles to it.
Absolutely.
What about the Czech Republic? Thinking about like Master's Hammer.
Master's Hammer, especially Ritual, for me, it's that one might do it for me, Marty, for atmosphere, for that style. When you said Beherit or whatever, that might be the one for me. That's got just those weird jaggedy rhythms to it, and then the broken English, you know.
Yeah, broken, creepy English. Yep, creepy vocals.
Too, absolutely. Another one, Alan, I don't know if I'm sitting there with you, Dark Quarterer.
Quarterer fucking rule. Oh my god.
Yeah,
so
they had the darkness, but yeah, is anything in their music really scary or?
No, it's just weird and quirky, but man, it's really cool.
It's that Italian oddity. I'll tell you 2 songs right now from Italy that get me is, first one is The Evil, The Sorrow from Paul Chain. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't know if I know that song. Which release is it? Is it on the EP, Detaching from Satan? Okay. Haven't heard it in ages. But
and then the other one is, and I can't remember the damn. It's Doomed. Oh, what the hell is this? It's Necrodeath, pre-Necrodeath, when they were Ghost Rider. I can't remember. It's Doomed something. I can't. Damn, if somebody knows down there, please tell me real quick. I hate not knowing something. It's from their demo, the Ghost Rider, and that was another one of those spooky ass songs.
Yeah, I don't know that one, but maybe someone in the chat will know it.
Yeah, someone knows. I'm going to look real quick myself. I hate Google cheating. I want to remember it in my mind still.
Yep.
Almost 55.
I've got more falling out of my head than I got coming in anymore. It's kind of sad.
I'm still on it, but it's definitely it's Doomed. Oh man, I don't know. Ghost Rider.
Yeah. I think, you know, Italy and Death SS are just a good example of, you know, what that first band does can have such a big impact.
I'm glad you went there, brother, because I couldn't remember, man. I mean, going to Italy, I might have, you know, looked right over that, and that would have been pathetic.
Yeah, I wouldn't even have thought of Master's Hammer until we started this. We got down this rabbit hole. It's like, oh yeah, that early stuff.
Yeah.
Doomed to Serve the Devil is the name of the song.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know that one.
And you know what? We can't. I mean, you've already mentioned the name once tonight when you brought me on. You got to go with Bulldozer too. The Day of Wrath has got some very evil sounding stuff on it.
That's a great record. That's a great record.
They played that whole record on tour with us every night. I was just watching.
Oh, cool.
Those rips. You know, that's cool. Which, if you want to continue on, which gets us to your goblins and your soundtrack stuff that had rock influence, because we could sit here and probably say one of the spookiest things any of us have ever heard is the theme to Suspiria. I mean, the opening theme to Suspiria has got to be one of the most creepy rock things ever made.
Yeah, you can get into all kinds of. Yeah, I don't know my soundtracks well at all, but you can get into all the John Carpenter-ish stuff and the classic Halloween music and everything.
But I think the thing I'm saying about goblins, because I think they definitely were in the hard rock sphere there, more so than John Carpenter, where he's just kind of doing his thing. A lot of horror soundtracks are like that. But I just think with Goblin, it could have been a song. It could have just been like on a record somewhere and stuff, not just being made for horror music.
Laps 9 Continuum's got a good one too. Hungry's Tormentor with Attila from Mayhem. Yeah, that's some good creepy, horror themed Countess Bathory. That's kind of leading you into the more black metal, which which has its place. Me, I'm not a big guy of the modern day stuff. Yeah.
I mean, I never found anything like I'm still from the old days. I still the Merciful Fates, the Venoms. That's where it's I don't say it's haunting all of it. The Merciful Fate is the Venom works. There's songs there. That later stuff, I could never get all that atmosphere you were feeling in Bahia, and I played it. To me, it just came and went. But that's just from the listener's ears. That's I'm being respectful to black metal tonight.
The Bahia song, "The Gate of Nana" or whatever, is that the name of the song? That's
one of them. Yep.
Creepy. It's more weird than creepy. It makes it creepy because it's so weird. But the Finns are all a little bit.
They are. Yeah. Someone with getting into edging into the black metal a little bit. Someone mentioned this one a few minutes ago, and it's a good example. Yeah, the first Cults de Ghouls.
I don't know that at all.
Henbane. It's a very raw, jagged kind of sound to it. Very sort of over the top vocal performance that's very creepy. And this plays into very much sort of the medieval witch hunt side of horror. It's witchcraft. They're witches, burn them, chop them up, kind of stuff. Because this one, let's see, what's the full title of this? Because there's something about children. It's called the Hexame is the shorthand, but the full title is something like of witchcraft and the murder of children. Someone in the chat can find it faster than I can, but yeah, it's I kind of agree, King. While I do like a lot of 90s black metal and forward, I don't necessarily find a lot of it fits the horror tag very well. Right. This is one example I pulled that I thought did have enough of that horrific sound that was worth showing out.
I was like, for me, of anything modern, it's over 30 years. I love that Master's Hammer Ritual album. That's one I dig.
I like the Fleminist Occultist or whatever one. I like that one too. Really weird.
Yeah, it's decent. I don't hear as many cool things for me. I also even Root too, the early Root stuff.
There's some cool Root stuff. Root always kind of reminded me of Moonspell in a way, or the other way around. They always had that Count Chocula type of Moonspell vibe,
right.
Vocally. Yeah.
I mean, going country to country. I mean, did Germany have any of it that really sticks out to anybody, or like Brazil? I can't really think of anything. I'm trying.
Brazil was always more brutal, more stripped down.
I mean, they had the look, they had the themes. You look at those covers, they take your sarcophagus or whatever.
Yeah,
they're definitely trying to like shock. What about Germany? I can't think of anything.
I can't think of Germany.
Germany, I mean, you had a little bit of the satanic angle with. Some people couch Early Running Wild and the first Iron Angel album as having a satanic leaning to them. I always thought that was a little overstated myself.
But what about horror in general? No, I can't think.
Not really. Nothing jumps.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think Italy's where the spookiest mothers are.
Yeah.
And there's so many. There's just and all those bands, they feed off of what Death SS started.
That's true.
But,
well, I mean, Denmark. Let's go to Denmark again. I mean, this is a layup, but I mean, whether you like King Diamond or not, he perfected the horror type of. Each one of these could have been a horror movie.
Oh yeah, they're horror.
They're conceptual albums. You got Abigail and the 2-part. them and Conspiracy are, two stories feeding off the same.
I mean, he was
theme.
definitely leading the pack with that stuff with the stage show and everything.
Yeah,
when that came around, for sure. I mean, it was to me, it was a big step down from Merciful Fate, Don't Break the Oath when he went solo.
Sure, yeah.
But it's you're right. It's close. It might be the closest thing there still is. I mean, Ghost, whatever with Ghost. I mean,
I heard the first Ghost album. Someone gave it to me. I listened to it. It sounded like Blue Oyster Cult to me. I'm like, man, this guy's just aping Blue Oyster Cult, whatever. And then from there on, it just kind of exploded. I liked his band Repugnant.
Yeah,
kind of where I was.
I'm not a Ghost guy. Never was. I don't. Yeah. I sat to them opening for Iron Maiden, and it was embarrassingly bad to me. Yeah. I just thought they sounded like an old goth girl I used to date. It's like the CDs in her purse.
One of her farts.
Yeah. The CDs that were in her purse, like the Cleopatra Records. Photography.
Nosferatu. Yeah, Ghost was never my band, but yeah, Repugnant's cool. I did just think of digging through the stack here. I had one thing from Germany that's got a kind of a horror lent to it. Necros Christos.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That's more like dark, twisted spirituality type of shit. That's a great record. That's a great record.
And it kind of begs the question, like, how much of the occult stuff is there a line between occult and horror? Is being just kind of occult themed enough to put it into the horror camp, or is that a separate thing? Again, I don't really know, but yeah, these guys very much have that ritualistic dark occult thing going on, but is it flat out horrifying? I'm not sure.
Right.
But, it was the one I found here that it was German. So
anything else in that pile you want to talk about, Alan?
Maybe. Let's see. We've talked about Witchfinder General earlier, and they did inspire a lot of other, doom bands over the years that have done that same kind of hammer horror vibe.
Right.
I grabbed this. Purification is just one of the recent ones out of the Pacific Northwest that have been doing it. But I mean, this is its own cottage industry of these bands. Reverend Bazaar did this. Purification, Beastmaker, that all have that same kind of. Again, it's all about witches and medieval stuff and, lots and lots of Satan, but it's always got that tongue-in-cheek component to it also. Whereas, they're acting very serious, but you kind of know they're not very serious at the same time.
Do we take the other angle of it and say the same kind of thing of some pretty intense stuff? Because I'll tell you what, a pretty dark record, most of it, not all of it, that's dark in a personal horror way would be Trouble the Skull, which it's more of a like of the horrors of the world kind of thing. That, or even like I was thinking also Tyrant, Legions of the Dead. Like those are some pretty deep. There's a lot of intense like stuff going on in those. I'm not just saying like burn the witches and stuff and all that kind of stuff anymore. More so with Tyrant, but I mean if you listen to Trouble the Skull, there's a lot of like dark sadness, horror in their lives kind of thing going on. A lot of that record, especially like the title track and things like that. What do you think, Marty? You hear that like hauntingness to it?
Yeah, I mean, you took it in a direction I wasn't expecting, and I was still trying to process the Trouble thing. My first album with that band was Run to the Light, which I love, and that's just a depressing record to me. There's nothing really horror about it. The Skull,
I think some of that like fight, inner turmoil and stuff. And again, this is outside of the witches and demons horror. I'm talking personal horrors now again.
Yeah. I mean, sure.
I have to consider, because to me that's the real horror. Now we're outside the comic book. We're outside of.
That's where shit. Real life and death is really is the scary thing. I mean, especially we were talking. The older you get,
the real devil.
Yep. The older you get, the more mortality is at the forefront of your mind. I mean, all these young bucks watching this, it's coming.
They're laughing.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
and I don't want to leave Tyrant. Tyrant had some Battle of Armageddon, the song Legions of the Dead.
Yep. God, I haven't spun those guys in a while. I should dig those records out again.
That first one, especially. I mean, the vocals carry it too. Some of the voices. Maybe we should talk about that. What about like inside of it? I mean, is Tony Iommi the wickedest riffer there is?
Oh yeah,
it has to be, right?
Yeah, it has to be him and Adrian Smith and Dave Murray.
I mean, it has to be like the
Denner and Sherman, LaRock and.
I mean, if you listen to something like Black Sabbath over and over, like just musically, it gets you in this personal horrors of it can be your children, it can be your mortality, it can be just your everyday living in your mind and not being able to keep up with what's going on in the world nowadays or anytime in your life. You know what I'm saying? That to me still horror. I mean, I know our backdrop here is like the Night of the Living Dead and stuff, which is our comic book horror to a degree, but I think that this stuff here is important because I know I look for this stuff. I search this kind of like personal kind of stuff out too because I think it's pretty intense.
Well, someone mentioned Wade mentioned Saint Vitus. Personal horror, I would say Saint Vitus.
Yeah, like some of that early, that's some spooky stuff, especially that first record, Psychopath and the Psychopath and Burial at Sea. Those are some pretty creepy tunes, man.
Yep.
I had Vitus pulled here because they they don't always go deep on it.
For the sirens,
zombie hunger,
loud and bright, the neighborhood asylum.
Simon Cowell called King. He said, "Fuck off."
I didn't get 3 stars. Come on, man.
Yeah, but Saint Vitus sometimes later, they do some of the songs with mental depression and insanity, in a horrifying link. But they also do Zombie Hunger and Return of the Zombie. So they have, the just kind of classic monster horror sometimes too. But they have songs that have nothing to do with any of that either. So I don't really think of Saint Vitus as a horrific band, but some of the songs definitely go that way.
Now for a second, I'm going to take us into the sanitarium. And I'm gonna talk about like Black Sabbath, The Writ, or things like that, where that side of the record, like even Am I Going Insane? Loopy ass, weird, freaked out. What's wrong with these people? I know we're in mental illness and Ozzy's drug moments and all that kind of shit. But I mean that stuff on the record is spooky, man. Am I Going Insane might be one of the most like, what is wrong with this motherfucker kind of shit.
Yeah, the repetition of it towards the end of it's like, okay, they're driving it home, And
then the screams that moving forward into the next. It's spooky.
Wilson,
like you were saying earlier, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, not just the artwork, just the stuff inside that record.
Wilson Tam
all angles. There's so many side plots and arteries to the big horror heart. You know what I'm saying?
Wilson Tam puts up Mystifier's Wicca and Goetia are great occult Brazilian black metal.
Now I own those. I definitely own Wicca. I know I have that one. It's pretty good for what it is, but I don't get the spooky vibe from it personally. But again, I don't get beharit when you do, and you probably don't get scared when you listen to Lucky Man.
I struggled pulling some stuff for this, but this one popped up basically on the lyrical content alone, and it's hey Al. Okay.
Hi.
Hellwell, which is a side project of Mark Shelton from Manila Road.
Okay.
Beyond the Boundaries of Sin, and the last album, which is, I can't remember the name of it, Beyond the Demon's Eyes. A lot of like horror type lyrics. This is basically Manila Road with Deep Purple type organ stuff over the top of it. But, there's a track on here, Tomb of the Unnamed One. Side 2 of this is some amazing, there's some Cthulhu type vibes going on it, but there's some awesome Manila Road songs on here that ended up being Hellwell songs. I don't know. Have you heard these, King? Have you heard these Hellwell songs?
I have heard pieces. I do not own those, and I respected the hell out of that guy as a player. So I really should.
Both of these are excellent.
On your recommendation, I will.
The last album is a little thrashier, but this album is it's like Deep Purple and Manila Road got together and he's got like a band names, like people put into place of who played what, but I've heard rumors that this is all him, other than maybe the drums and stuff.
Oh yeah.
I heard it was all Mark Shelton, but again, I don't know, but
yeah,
there's some really great horror themed, like horror movie type, serial killer type stuff going on. These Hellwell records, both are really good.
Yeah, and that's kind of going completely the opposite direction from King, where you have the very intensely personal horror out to the cosmic Lovecraftian horror, and that's its own cottage industry. The Blue Dust Nord from this past year was all kind of Lovecraft themed.
Right.
We could talk. We could do an entire episode on Lovecraft in metal, which we probably will eventually.
Right.
But it's another different, like you said, King. It's another branch of horror where you get into these big cosmic entities, and mankind is just we're ants running around the surface of the planet, and we have no control over anything, and we just we lose our sanity on a whim. Just we peek around the wrong corner and see something humans aren't supposed to see, and you fucking lose it.
Thanks for the clarification, DG. Appreciate it. I knew it was all Mark. I didn't think he played the drums on it, but I heard he tried to make it look like it was a band, but it was him. It was all him.
Yeah, Sulfur Eon's another good example of a band that does
Cthulhu. Yeah,
I'm trying to get
all the
picture up here.
Cthulhu mythos.
I'm still listening. I'm going to tell you what I think is one of the darkest records, and definitely in the last decade for me, this is the darkest record I've heard, and I think it's in a good. It's if you don't, I know you know the band, Alan. I don't know if Marty does, but this record right here blew my mind when it came out. It's still amazing in its own sense. Can you get me up there? Am I where I need to be?
Get it in front of your camera.
Yeah,
all right, I'm trying to here.
The dark to the other. Yep, the Dark Place. Is that the name of the
Dark
band?
Place by Legend.
Legend.
Oh,
the Norwegian band.
No. Tell him, Alan.
Oh, British.
That's right.
Yeah,
Legend, the great passed away Pete on guitar, one of the best players of that style. That's one of the most. That might be the most haunting record I've heard. We played with them at the Keep It True the same year, and man, I got that record from them. I've been blown away by it, And I just thought of something. Thinking of that, I wanted to say, if anybody hasn't heard that, get it. Go listen on YouTube to it. It's all up there, man. It's a masterpiece. He was actually wanting me to actually contribute to the next record. I was going to do a spoken part, but Pete passed away.
I'll be right back. I gotta go potty again.
Yeah. This was this for folks. When did this come out? 2013. Okay. Yeah, I missed that album. I have not heard it. But yeah, this is a band.
Amazing. The emotions and the singing on it. Oh my God, it's so good.
That was their strong suit. Yeah, that was their strong suit. Even on the other.
Anybody that's watching this, listen to that record. Sorry if it didn't come up on the screen. Maybe Alan can put it up better because I don't know what I'm doing here, man. I'm here.
Oh no, it's all good. But yeah, this was they always had good singing, good emotion. Even like they did.
They were amazing live. Those guys were. The singer was almost 70 when they played then.
Wow.
A song. I know Marty's not here now. Another song. I'm not the world's biggest fan, but this song, Pink Floyd, "Welcome to the Machine." That's one of the spookiest songs I've ever heard. I don't know what it just came into my mind when I was over here. I don't know why, but
a couple of folks have mentioned. A couple of folks have mentioned. Different early Pink Floyd stuff.
Yeah, like that song for me. Here, I'm gonna try this one more time. Let me see if I can.
Sure.
Fuck. It's not really. Fuck.
Yeah,
it does say Legend right here, but it's hard to see because of the lighting.
Yeah. Shit. But yeah, folks, if anyone's looking for it, just like
Legend
Metal Archives, it's the same band that did Death in the Nursery.
A hard rock record. It's with one of the best guitar players ever come out of the new wave of British heavy metal, and those guys go way back. Death in the Nursery, all that stuff.
Yep.
They're well, I don't want to say they're legends, but they're legends. Unfortunately, Pete passed away a few years ago. I don't know if you knew that, Alan. Did you know that?
I did not. Nope.
He got sick. That's a shame.
What else have we got?
But yeah, no. Pink Floyd, "Welcome to the Machine" is another song that's an all-time spooky one for me. I'm not a big Pink Floyd guy. I've never been. I respect them. They're good players. They do have some dark stuff now and then. That's the tune for me with them.
That's a creepy song for sure. I would 100%.
I was one night. This is years ago. I was at the cemetery. My dad died at 27, so his grave's been there since 74. I was out there one night late with this girl. We were just talking. I said, "Let me take you by my dad's grave. We're doing what we do and just fooling around a little bit." And we're sitting in the car. I'm just sitting there, and that song came on, and it was at a cemetery like 12:30 at night. And she's like, "Can you turn this off?" And it's freaking me out. I'm like, "It's freaking me out too." That "Welcome to the Machine." It's just got that haunting again. That rock I was telling you earlier, that stuff. I mean, if people know songs like that do that for them, man,
you got to crank the sadist when you're out with the ladies.
Comments. Right, I'd like to hear some stuff. Like I'd like to find another DOA from Blood Rock kind of song. Somebody's like, "Oh, you ever heard this?" Because there was stuff like that. Sure.
Yeah, one of my first makeout sessions was to the Sadist Illusions Chemical Exposure cassette tape in my old 77 GMC Jimmy.
Let's see.
I can never turn this off, ladies. Never turn it off.
Right. He does have that effect on the ladies.
We've been covering a lot of bands, a lot of styles, and a lot of countries. One we haven't touched on too much yet are some more of the traditional or getting into the power metal side of things. But does this count?
I was going to say Hellstar earlier. I wasn't going to say that record, but yeah, I was thinking Hellstar. I was thinking more like stuff from the first album, like Dracula's Castle or like Towards the Unknown had some, eeriness to it. But yeah, I would say it does.
Run with the Pack with kind of the werewolf thing going on. Yep.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear it. Something else I was thinking too when you said Hammer was, what about when Warfare did the whole album on the Hammer Horrors?
Yep.
Remember that? I don't think it was spooky though, but I think you're right with the power metal. There's spooky tunes like that.
Yeah, they did. Half this album is just Bram Stoker's Dracula. Hellstar has really gotten into the vampire thing more and more on some of their more recent albums too. They've kind of came back to this and done it and redone it.
This is when, if Marty hadn't done it, this is when I would say Warlord, but Marty's already mastered.
Yeah, we touched on Warlord earlier. That's not the one. There is. I close the tab. There's a French band called Heavenly that did an album, Dust to Dust, that was like a vampire concept album.
I don't know that. You got it there?
I had it. Let me pull it back up. But yeah, they did a few albums early 2000s. Pretty good, but very much what you'd think of as modern European power metal. But yeah, this was their third or fourth album. It got some good reviews. It did not have good distribution stateside. I'll find it here in a second.
While you're doing that,
but Storm Witch would be like, another good example. They did lots of, the gothic horror kind of stuff. Even later on when they kind of got watered down. Here's the Heavenly album with vampire turning to dust on the cover. Okay. And it's a concept album.
I don't know that cool cover. I've never seen that ever.
It's cool kind cover. It's not a real old one. I want to say it came out around 2003, 2004, right? Maybe a year or two after. But
I was pretty good on stuff then. I guess I just missed it.
Yeah, it's not bad, but yeah, the band went very overlooked. It leans a little bit more in like the Anne Rice direction of vampire horror, a little bit more the woe is me, it's so hard living forever. Shut the fuck up and drink your blood. That was never my favorite style of horror music.
Hey, I have one I've been wanting to say, which I think is one of the eeriest. When they were at their eeriest, they were the eeriest heavy metal band there was. And I'm going to say Sabotage.
Yeah, I posted up the early Sabotage had a creepy. Yeah,
like the song. Okay, for example, Sirens, Holocaust. I believe right off the first record, Scream Murder is probably the darkest thing they did, and then go to the song, The Dungeons Are Calling.
Dungeons Are Calling, yes.
There's stuff
White
like
Witch.
Those four tunes are right up there with Mrs. Victoria. They're just very haunting. I mean, that sound he had, his voice could be one of the best of that. A shriek, Sirens is freaky, man.
Yeah.
Sirens, it's that's to me, that's horror metal. That's fucking horror metal, dude.
When John wanted to, he sounded like he was locked up, in the asylum, pounding on the walls.
He was on the other side of Ozzy.
He could do that so easily.
He was on the other side of Ozzy. They were getting ready to do "Am I Going Insane" duet.
DJ Charles, I pulled this record, so I'll show it. I mean, this is nothing scary about this, but songs about Dracula and Jack the Ripper, Damien. This is a good album, and it's got Steve DiGiorgio on bass, Sessions bass. He's I mentioned Sadis earlier. That's where he came from.
There's another good Sabotage song on screen. Sorry.
This is a really, really great Iced Earth record. And you want to talk, this isn't maybe power metal. I almost have to kick my own ass for pulling this out, but I'm going to show it anyway. We're the Dream Warriors. Which was
every time I'm on this show, there's always a moment where we stop for trivia.
Yep.
What was the original song? And I've said the answer on the show. What was the original song to be in the movie? And last minute they pulled it and used Dream Warriors. What was it?
Oh shit! I was just reading about this the other day.
No idea.
Oh,
the original song. I don't know what the hell.
Yeah.
The original song.
Because it was not supposed. Yeah, somebody wrote it because they ended up doing something else with the song.
It's not somebody. It's a band. It's a huge band.
Yeah. But shit, what track was it? Because it's. I should know, and I'm drawing a blank.
You want me to say?
Yeah, go ahead. It's late. I'm not going to think of it.
Nightmare from Black Sabbath on Eternal Idol. That was.
Wade gets the cookie.
Yeah.
It gets the cookie. Cheers to you, Wade.
I kept thinking something about Tony Iommi, but I was thinking
that was supposed to be the song, and I know that wouldn't have done as much as Dream Warriors did in the scheme of MTV. Black Sabbath. Tony Iommi's mustache could only do so much.
I mean, why would they pick a song like Dream Warriors other than it was written for the album for the movie probably? But
Absolutely.
there's nothing scary about that damn song. I mean, this is an okay Dokken record, but I'm just saying.
Well, no, you're right. I mean, you can always touch base on that. Metal songs in horror movies. You look at Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter,
which is a terrible fucking Bruce Dickinson song.
Bruce
I hate that damn song.
I know it's no good. It really is no good.
It really is not a good song. Too repetitive.
Or Alan, how about songs written for horror movies stuff? I'm not going to say sorcery stunt rock like that. We know that was a band we had some spooky stuff we didn't touch in the 70s. I just came into my mind. I mean, the Wizards Council, Sacrifice, all that kind of stuff. Yes, but what about like stuff that made the movies? Like, for example, the song from New Year's Evil. I don't even remember what the hell the song's called right now. But like I have over here, the Night Train to Terror. They did songs. Bands did songs exclusively for the movie, or they made up bands for the movie. I know we're all sitting here for like 8 seconds and be like, I don't know. But there is stuff. There's definitely stuff. Terror on Tour was a movie, that went down. The big one would be, again, we're back to sorcery, Rocktober Blood. That was some good stuff. I'm Back. Come on, everybody watching the show, you don't remember I'm Back from Rocktober Blood? I can't see the comments, so
you can't see the comments. Oh, that's a bummer.
I'm trying to catch back up on the comments and pull some up here.
Well, I mean, you got Fastway doing the Trick or Treat,
right? Rainbow Eyes was another one from the Rocktober Blood. There's a lot of movies that did heavy metal bands in movies, but they actually did the songs for the movie. You know what I'm saying?
This wasn't that case, but you got River's Edge. You had the Metal Blade soundtrack. I mean, you got Fates Warning, you got Hallows Eve in there, you got Slayer in there, and they were actually in the fucking movie. Yeah, Fates Warning. Yeah, they're all in the movie. And that's not necessarily a horror movie, but I'm just saying.
No, but I'm just while we're covering it tonight, I'm throwing it all out there. I mean, the heavy metal movies, people
Black Roses was a heavy metal horror movie.
Right. You got Thor did the stuff too, They're not going to say that's horror. We'll say that's horrible, but
Flash of the Blade was in Phenomena. Wow. That's like my favorite Bruce song, Flash of the Blade. I love that.
Yeah, that was definitely in there. It's so a lot of heavy metal in Demons too.
Oh yeah, Leatherface soundtrack that had Laz Rocket in there.
Leatherface.
I think I actually had a CD single of that Laz Rocket song, of all things.
There was a lot of them. See, now people are coming around. And then Metal Blade would always contribute to movies like Sleepaway Camp. You hear Anvil on there. You see Anvil posters on the girls' walls. Or, I know we're way off now, but I mean, it's just still, it all comes together.
Yep. They tied it together
in some goddamn way. It's another great tune. The band was nothing like this otherwise, and they just put out a new record.
There's my jam. Shocker soundtrack.
Yeah, right. How about Jesters of Destiny, End of Time from Metal Massacre 5? That's a spooky tune. Remember them?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They just put out a new record, supposedly.
Yeah, I did not know that.
100 years later. Mentors related in some ways.
Yep. Let's see. Looking through what we haven't pulled yet. One country we haven't touched on yet, and there's probably some good examples. Someone again in the chat, sorry I didn't get this up earlier. Somebody mentioned Psy.
Yep.
They've got some very horror inspired soundtracky stuff worked in those.
Yeah, right. Whoever put that, that's a good one. That one's definitely got some spooky stuff on there, man. That damn saxophone's crazy.
The one band that is okay to play saxophone.
I actually wrote a song that I wrote for them. Like they used it was called "In the Mind of a Lunatic."
Yeah,
they did it on what's album they do? Hail Horror Hail.
Yeah, that's this one.
On that one. Flip it around.
Wait, what's the song?
It's called "In the Mind of a Lunatic."
It is not on this one.
It's on the green one, the green cover. I can't think of the title. Yeah.
Hold on, I got the archives pulled up here. Psy.
Please. I wrote the lyrics for them, and he wrote the music. He wanted me to write lyrics for him for a song.
It's like two after this one.
Imaginary Song in the Mind of a.
Do you see it, Marty?
No, I was looking on Imaginary Soundscapes. I'm not seeing it. Did he change the name of it, or is it In the Mind of a Lunatic? Is that what it's called?
I'll find it. In the Mind of a Lunatic. See, I don't like doing this. I like to know this.
Shit.
I ain't seeing it.
Gallows Gallery.
I'll find it. I'll have it in 10 seconds.
King, what year was it you toured with Psy? Because I saw y'all on that tour, and I was trying to remember.
We didn't really tour. We did a couple shows together. We know that was in the 90s.
I was thinking it might have been 2000, but was it 99?
It might have been 2000. Did you see us at King's?
Yep. Sorry, at King's Arcade in Raleigh,
in North Carolina.
Yep.
It was.
So yeah, it almost had to be 2000.
You're saying it wasn't Hail Horror, right? Okay, it wasn't Hail Horror.
This, I'm not finding it.
Yeah, I'm looking. I got it here. Hold on, I'm gonna find it. It's here it is. Scenario 4, Dread Dreams.
Oh, okay.
It's song 5. In the Mind of a Lunatic.
What album is it on?
Scenario
4, Dread Dreams is the name of the album.
It'll be their 5th album or 4th full length. It'll be the one right after Hail Horror.
Oh, I skipped over that one. Right. I was looking for green covers and that one's red. In the Mind of the Lunatic. Yep.
I was trying to get 6 cents royalty for writing the I was going to take us all out for Celtic Frost riffs. Whoops.
Yeah, but
we ever talk about Celtic Frost
other Japanese bands?
Okay, go with your Japanese. Okay, so there was that. What else was Japan? How about Doom from Japan? They were kind of a Voivod thing, but they had some pretty spooky type stuff.
Doom from Japan? I've never heard of them.
Okay, don't know that one. No.
They had a bunch of albums that Voivodish a little bit, but also some spooky stuff. That Psy is kind of like that. It's just jaggedy, weird, soundtracky, avant-garde. Would you say?
Oh yeah, yep. Hold on, I've got one. I'll pull.
Apparently, I'm not as familiar with the Japanese scene as I probably should be. Abigail, Ryan Muldoon there dropped some Abigail bombs.
Ryan Muldoon, he's scary. Love you, buddy.
He watches every week, man. We love you, Ryan. He's always blowing up the chat with funny shit.
He's great.
Yeah, Man of War, Guyana, Cult of the Damned, and Bridge of Death.
Yeah. Another Japanese one someone mentioned earlier that I didn't pull, but went and got Genocide Nippon, Black Sanctuary.
Oh, yeah, that's good. I like that record. That's good stuff.
It's kind of cool. Yeah. And it has, I don't know if I'd call it horror, but it definitely has, some kind of dark and creepy stuff to it for sure.
You see this one, Marty? No, probably not. Can anybody see that?
It's red with some clips on it. What does it say? You got to tip it this way a little bit more.
I'm trying to here. Hold on. Sorry. Trying to get the color to come out for you.
See, pretext. I was just talking to somebody earlier this week about Flower.
There you go. That's Doom
albums.
That's Doom from Japan, Killing Field. That's an amazing record. Spooky.
I've never heard of it.
It's like, again, it's like avant-garde. I was going to say, somebody was just talking about something. I was going to say, have we not many females doing this stuff? Do we have some crazy females stuff we can go down? Was there a couple gals trying to be witches or anything?
Well, Coven, we got Coven. We got
Coven.
Jexthoth.
Jexthoth is kind of cool. I don't know if they have that sound. I don't know if they have anything really horrific. But definitely a good sound.
Is it literally Dinah Cancer from 45?
I would say 45 Grave, yeah.
leaving
well, Ripper, Ripper had a female member. What was it? Sadie, not Sadie Graves, Sadie Kane. They all had goofy names.
Right.
But, the bass player from Ripper was Sadie something.
At times, Nina Hagen.
Nina Hagen was fucked up, scary stuff.
Like she had that song about being possessed by the devil.
Yeah,
and I know if Matt Altieri's listening would know, we listen to that song over and over in my car. It's very haunting, but again, one tune, it's spooky. I don't know if that might be something someone needs to do. Get some woman out there, be a witch. You got your King Diamond out there.
Yeah,
I don't want to say
just you do have this one kind of goes that it's a Ukrainian artist. The band name is Ayesher.
Oh, the
I
black
don't know.
metal.
Somebody type that down there for me, man. I want to check that out.
Yeah,
it's black metal, isn't it?
Yeah, it's newer black metals. Yeah,
what was the one girl that was on? Was it Lullaby? The thing that was always on those demos on Wild Rags.
Oh, the Wild Rags.
I'm talking about that Lullaby. Was that the name of it?
Yeah, it was the name of the band. Was Lullaby. I can't remember
Wasn't it a Brazilian girl?
Let me look.
Yeah,
look that up. It was on Wild Rags. That was pretty bizarre, chaotic, odd. But again,
yeah, you're right. Brazil, doom black metal.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ayesha, she's going. I mean, the music in the background is very much modern black metal stuff. But she's singing like a little bit more cleaner, droning kind of. Has the sultry vibe to the vocals. All the imagery is very much She's done a video for one of the songs on a new album or EP that's coming out, and it's got her. It's all generated to look like an old 30s black and white.
You own that original of that, Alan?
This one? No, it's something that's about to come out.
You don't own it in your collection. It's just something you reading about.
Yeah, I just found out Kellen over on the Killing for Company channel just brought the band up a few days ago, but she's got a couple of releases out on Bandcamp. I don't know if there's a physical product tied to it yet. There might be cassette only or something.
Right. Should we give a shout out to Kate, and because she is the Devil's daughter, Lucifera is her name. Kate from Acid again. Now and then they had the first album had a lot of that, Hell on Wheels, all that kind of stuff. But again, I said this 53 times in this last 10 minutes. None of this stuff is really spooky.
None of it's scary. None of it's scary. Horror theme.
I'm going to say now. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm going to stay. Don't Break the Oath is the official top of the heavy metal horror chart of any one album.
I would say yes, and I would say black metal is the king of the Satanic Panic era, just because of
I'm fine with both of those.
Yeah, I don't think black metal is necessarily a creepy record. It just fit in the time perfect. It was the right place at the right time album. You know what I mean?
What about I said this earlier, but what about Hellhammer? What do we think about Triumph of Death and stuff like that? That's pretty fucking harrowing for what it is. I mean, they got a couple tunes.
They had a couple tunes, man. And I was a Celtic Frost guy first and found out about Hellhammer afterwards. But I mean, it's pretty knuckle dragging riffs. It's not really scary.
That fucking apocalyptic raids is pretty fucked up, man.
Yeah, screaming.
They can definitely hit the creepy. It's more like the odd, creepy kind of button, maybe more so than the scary creepy button. But they definitely have that in their repertoire.
Yeah, because I was going to say, what did you? God damn it! Sorry.
While you look that up, King, one I was going to mention because I know he watches the stream sometimes. Salem's Lot out of California. This band has kind of some of the look. They go for the makeup. They're usually described as
I like that good name. I like that.
Yeah, they're usually described as maybe more of a visual kei, K-E-I, the Japanese look. I'm sorry if I'm not using the term quite correctly, but musically, again, it's not scary stuff. It's more just kind of wild metal rock. It's pretty good, but let me get a picture of the band.
Guess nobody's trying to spook people out, really, man.
But he's going more for the let's find a good picture of the band, because Tony Ekman is one of the guys in the band, and he watches the stream. He comments on videos sometimes, so I definitely wanted to mention them, because they haven't. This album came out in 2018, I think. So it's been, or maybe a little earlier than that. They've had a few. It's been a couple of years since they came out. Crap. Let me find a good picture of them in a second. We'll come back to it. But yeah, they're a good example. They've got kind of the look. If you just looked at it, you might think that they were kind of like the equivalent of Detroit's Halloween. But they don't have all the song titles or stuff that are necessarily meant to go in that same direction.
Oh my God. I don't want to leave this guy because this band did this stuff too. Before I forget, I wanted to say Celtic Frost, Dance Macabre is definitely a freaky weird tune.
Yeah, with the screaming, the la 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 la, that thing. Yeah.
Oh my God. The guy had the band. Shit, I can't think of it. It's gonna take me a while. They played. They were hanging out. Power Matt. He's in my Facebook. I'm trying to remember his damn name. It's not coming to me. He has the cape and all that shit, and it's good. I can't fucking think of who it is right now. So I apologize.
Okay. Yeah. Here's a decent shot of
what
Salem's Lot. I mean, they really go heavy on the the hair, the makeup.
Yeah. I got you. A little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm. So they kind of they've got the glam shock key kind of look, but the music always can be pretty ripping sometimes.
Me and King long for those days we could spike our hair up like that.
Yeah, another one that's kind of close to that were Energy Vampires.
Oh yeah, I remember them. I like that record. That's good. That kind of reminded me of Ozzy a little bit. Some of that,
a little bit.
Early Ozzy.
Yep. Yeah, these guys grew out of I think from the ashes of, was it Slaughter Extroys?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they had the stage sets.
Record. I do like that.
Yeah, they had stage sets with all the candelabras and the fog machines and everything like that. The music, again, not really creepy, a little bit more in the shock rock kind of vein, but some of the tunes ripped pretty well. And this was a band that was trying to set the stage to have that kind of horror atmosphere, but not a whole lot in the music necessarily, but yeah, a cool one.
I definitely
Never really got
I
anywhere.
want to give a
sadly.
little shout out. I saw Devil Master down there. Someone's talking about that's cool. I was thinking some Savage Master too. They've got some tunes like that. You know, they got the look and the, you know, she does her thing. You know, Savage Master, they're good at what they do. It's, you know, it's got the horror tinge. The candles are up there and stuff. Like, you know, they sing about the stuff they should sing about.
Yeah,
so
they just did a new album last year, and it's quite good. I thought it was a step. I finally got to hear it, and I thought it was a step up from what they had done on their previous album.
Good.
So basically, the general consensus of what we've been talking about tonight, we can largely agree. I mean, yeah, there's going to be exceptions to this rule, but the scary element is kind of left. We agree that the scary element, as far as horror themed, shocking, scary, is kind of left the building. Would we all agree with that? We've all maybe we're too old. We're too desensitized.
It's very not that common anymore. I mean, that's why a lot of people come up to me and they tell me Deceased is one of the few bands that does, and then we do get the comparisons to King Diamond and stuff just because it, you know,
sure, your voice and you know,
no, I agree totally, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this show or talk about this show was there stuff that I just don't see out there now.
Yeah. What about this band, King? This is another Denial of God. They're one of the few active bands that when I think of, I kind of think of them and Deceased kind of side by side. These guys remind me a lot of what you guys do. You know,
I don't know that one.
Oh, okay. I believe they're from Denmark.
I think you're right.
But remind me of that one at the end, man. I want to check that out too. There's a few. I want to check out that girl you put up on there too. That one from wherever the hell she was talking about.
Ukraine.
I already forgot.
Yeah.
I'm in my mind thinking of everything but what I should be thinking of.
Yeah, this was a blind buy for me a couple of years ago, and just putting on, just trying to wrap my head around it, and it finally clicked. Just like they're doing the same kind of thing Deceased has been doing since Fearless Undead Machines. A little different, not as fast, not quite as much of a traditional metal structure, but every song, is kind of, this mini ghost story or horror story.
That's cool.
So it's kind of, they're building things the same way you are.
There you go. Then I'll throw a shout out to October 31 because we did that too. And that's the thing. That was the thing with Jim because we're going to do one more record. I think I said on Facebook that Brian's unfortunately going through Parkinson's disease. We're not going to ever play live again.
Yeah.
As far as playing live, but we're going to do one more record. And Jim comes to me. He's like, man, let's just make it the most horror themed record you've ever done. I'm like, man, that's all I do. It's a cease. I was like, man, I wanted to write some heavy metal tunes and stuff, but I mean, the Fire Awaits You and stuff, that's all horror tinge. That's what it's in my mind. So that's what I did it.
Right.
But yeah. I think the early stuff we did like that, that's all we wanted to do. I mean, we were covering that shit,
Yep.
King, I know you can't see the comments, but a United Universe says, King, tell them about your horror metal brothers from the bowling alley. Haha, this is Sam.
This is Sam?
Sam says, this is Sam. Tell them about your horror metal brothers from the bowling alley. Ha ha ha, this is Sam. So someone named Sam.
Tell me what the hell you're talking about. I don't know. Sam, say something else, Sam, that'll fill me
Sam
in.
Biles.
Bowling alley up there
Sam Biles. Biles. B-I-L-E-S.
Oh, Sam Biles. Oh, I was thinking Youngstown's bowling alley. Of course, Bell Vernon bowling alley. I love Sam Biles. That's my boy, Head is Idiot Manglis. That's who that is. Oh, Sam, you in here too, brother? Good to see you. I grew up with that guy. That guy's great. He's the best.
Good deal. Glad you could join us, Sam.
Got my muscles like a motherfucker these days, too.
Yep.
I love you, Sam, man. I miss you, buddy. I haven't seen you in a while. But yeah, the old Bell Vernon days. We go up to Ides, get the horror movies and shit. And, he knows it, too. He lives by the Night of the Living Dead cemetery.
He says, cheers, King.
Hey, cheers to you, brother.
Good deal. Let's do a few more quick shout outs, but we did promise we'd leave some time for folks to ask King questions. Yep. Marty, any last ones you want to shout out?
No, I've shown everything that I pulled.
Okay. A couple I wanted to mention that got a little bit more again into the kind of the goth side of things, especially in the 90s. Typo Negative, of course. You played that up, and so did Cradle of Filth. Not a great band overall necessarily, but they definitely played a lot with the horror themes.
The vampire shit.
The vampire, Bathory kind of the very Victorian stylized horror stuff. But yeah, one last one I wanted to mention. I have been trying to order this for a while and just found it about a week ago. It hasn't come in yet. But going back to Italy one more time, because as we mentioned, Italy was kind of the masters of creep. A newer band called Abysmal Grief. They've been around. Well, they're not brand new. They've been around for at least a decade or so. But These guys, they really go. They work in the very creepy organs. We talked earlier about instrumentation being part of it. They have a lot of the organ sound, the funeral organ, the vocals, really meant to be creepy. Yeah, they've got the coffin and the logo. They're doing the visual thing.
Yeah, they got a little this, a little that. I like it.
Yep.
I don't know
still.
I'm gonna have to check it out.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't know the horror film stuff as well, but the cover art apparently is a still from one of the. Is it pronounced Giallo films? One of the big Italian guys. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, but yeah, just another band, and I've been checking out a couple of their albums. Kind of cool. So Italy still has some bands that are working in that same overtly horror doom vein that Italy's been famous for. But yeah, let me double check. I think that was the last one I wanted to shout out before we open up the floor for some questions for King.
I got one more thing I wanted to ask. Was there any horror bands coming out of Canada?
Good question.
Canada. Anybody got something from Canada?
Where were Exorcist from? They were U.S.
Exorcist was David Defy.
Virgin Steel guy.
Virgin Steel. That's why I said that earlier. With that Lords of the Crimson Alliance, same stuff. It's original sin, same
Wasn't
stuff.
that band that you show all the time from Canada? It's like the Misfits type of band.
Manimals? Oh, Manimals is a great. They're Ohio.
Oh, they're Ohio. I thought they're Canada.
What was the one band? What was the band with that Canadian? That Trop Feroz. What the hell was that one?
Yeah, someone mentioned Trop Feroz earlier.
Oh, good, good.
Yep.
I was just trying to, did we leave anybody out? We did Germany. We did almost all the the bigger countries. Anybody got anything from Puerto Rico or Mexico, real quick? The southern side of the world. Anybody got any Puerto Rico or Mexico?
I don't.
I'm drawing a blank.
Crazy shit down there that we haven't heard.
There probably are some, and just not thinking. But yeah, there's probably something else from Canada that we're just.
Spurger Kang says Italy been the masters of creep ever since Jacula / Antonius Rex.
I would agree. I think Italy takes it for the craziest, creepiest part of the world. I totally agree with that. Totally agree with that.
Yeah, I think I don't know if there's even much of a contest when you stop and add them all up. I think Italy wins pretty easy there. Let's see.
Portal from Australia, very south. Exorcist. Wait. Blasphemy. Butthole Wasabi says blasphemy from Canada. Nah, I don't really strike them as they're more war metal.
Let's see. Wade, Winterkill, if I remember right, is something that grew out of the remnants of Slaughter Extroys, one of those cult underground Chicago area bands from back in the day. But Winterkill's music was kind of cool. I don't know if they ever got a full album.
I apologize to my buddy. I can't think of his band. It's total horror metal too, and they've been doing it for like on and off for 20 years. And I cannot fucking think of the name, man. I'll put it in the comments once I go back to Facebook tomorrow or something. I'll put it in there because they're good at what they do. I can't think of what the fuck it is though, man.
Maybe it'll come to you in a few minutes. But,
Rick from the Dreadful Minute says Arbor from Italy. Another really good one. Last year's drop was amazing. I don't know what the hell.
Check that out. I'm gonna look at all these. I'm definitely gonna read all these comments. I always do anyway, but I'm gonna listen to some of this stuff. I'm gonna take it and go right to YouTube and see what I can find because this is my kind of stuff that I want to hear.
Rick is excellent at digging stuff up that nobody has heard, and then you hear it and you're just like, oh man, that's good. That is Rick's strong suit. Absolutely.
United Universe says Autopsy Severed Survival is a great horror album. I think Chris was like in an interview back in the day saying that a lot of the Autopsy lyrics were inspired by old VHS horror movies.
That makes sense. No, I mean, and he's not far off. I mean, it is. Then we're going into like that. We can go down this trail too for a long while. Just the death metal that had the songs, whether you take Death, Evil Dead, or any of that kind of any of that stuff. It's all part of it. Right there.
Evil. That's my favorite death record. Evil Chuck with Mutilation and Zombie Ritual.
My favorite songs by Death are on that record, but I always like the demo versions better. It's just that record's just too clean to me. It's just too clean.
Yeah.
But I love Evil Dead, Beyond the Unholy Grave. Those are my favorite songs.
Beyond the Unholy Grave is a fucking crushing song.
That's my favorite Death song.
Yeah, so good.
All right. Well, how about we open this up? I'm sure some folks have questions that they'd love to ask King about maybe more the horror movie side of thing, but can certainly still be.
It could be deceased. Sure. It could be whatever you guys want.
Yeah.
So,
yes, the bald spot is real.
Yep. That's why we wear hats. Us old fuckers. You see old fuckers wearing hats?
I still got my hair. That was back here.
I've got the toilet ring, and I got the Gallagher. My dad says you look like Bozo fuck Gallagher.
My race car driver. I got my double chin. Boy, I'm getting old. I love
Come
it
on.
though, man. Still be out there this year. Steve's
Right.
gonna play a lot of shows this year. We got a surprise later in the year for the West Coast. We'll tell you about that later. Not
Awesome. Awesome. And you know what, King? I got to tell you, we're going to start doing interviews on here too. I can drop that little bomb. We're going to start doing interviews. When the new Deceased comes out, we're going to get you on and do just a Deceased interview, if you're cool with that.
That's fine anytime.
Right on.
Yeah. Let's see. So yeah, one question from Charles. Yep, good one to start with. Favorite horror writers or horror books?
Oh wow! I mean that's always going to be Edgar Allan Poe. Every story he's done is my favorite. I've never people come to me and asking me about some of the other big guys and stuff like the Lovecraftian stuff and I respect it and stuff. But for some reason I go to the mental illness stuff better. Like I could tell Edgar Allan Poe had something really fucking wrong with him. So I always kind of stay there with that kind of stuff, And as far as books, when I was growing up, my stuff was nothing challenging, but it's what got me into all the stuff. I grew up with all those scholastic books and stuff on like 22 strange weird tales about the elevator operator or the hitchhiker that the guy picks up and brings home, but he's really dead. A lot of that stuff as a kid too. I took the shortcut and got the quote unquote audio book where I just bought those horror tale records that were very popular in the 70s, the famous ghost stories, people like Wade Dennell and things like that. It really is Edgar Allan Poe. It doesn't go. I mean, if I read tales that are fine, that's cool. I mean, I love what's her name did with the Woman in Black, the original of that, the movie of that in the book and stuff. I read that stuff. It's spooky. But I mean, I grew up more so on, I grew up mostly reading Fangoras and stuff about the horror movies more so than the stories of it. I have as I've gotten older, but I couldn't tell you names of things. I'll just read and read and read. It could be anything from the yellow wallpaper story that everybody saw in school that's weird in its own way to the story of the dead boy who the red rubber ball keeps bouncing down the stairs. It's just all in my head. But Edgar Allan Poe is the one I always go back to. Always.
What about you, Alan?
For me, it's probably Lovecraft.
I'm not smart enough to read Lovecraft. I'm just not.
Lovecraft, yeah, it's a little dense.
Enough pictures in the book.
I like the cosmos, that he kind of built up, with the different creatures and stuff. But
by the way, don't buy this one, man. This bubbly. Ooh, this bubbly.
Is the blueberry?
Oh, it tastes like Ripple.
We're a cherry guy.
But beyond that, Lovecraft was always very good at setting the scene. He set things in places he knew, so he could describe them very well in terms of the architecture. Yeah, he was always very good at getting the atmosphere. He didn't need some giant cosmic monster to make the story work. He could just do it by describing the scene, getting the mood set, and even though you kind of know most of the time, what's going to happen or where it's going. It could still, have, that, slightly unsettling vibe just because, he's very good at describing things and kind of building up to that, the big reveal, even though you probably figured out what the big reveal was. The Cthulhu stories are good, but just even some of the other ones where it's, random guy breaks down on dirt road and, goes looking for help and happens to wander into a house of, some random cannibal hillbilly. Even those stories, are fairly effective.
Right.
So yeah,
that's the thing. I mean, any time, real quick, not to sidetrack, but my friend's band was called Ravensthorn. Do you remember them? Any of you guys?
I've heard the name. Yeah, I may have had something by him back in the day.
William, he has cool stuff. That was good horror rock in a time when nobody was really doing that. That was about 15 years ago or so. They were good. Ravensthorn. So look that one up too.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, I would go with Lovecraft for those reasons. Just very good at getting the mood, getting the setting. That's my choice. Marty, do you have one?
For me, I really tried for a while to get into King, but he was too descriptive. He'd talk like paragraphs and paragraphs on the rust on a stop sign. I'm like, fuck off. I don't care. But for me, it was Clive Barker. I like the Books of Blood series, the Hellbound Heart, all that stuff. He was more perverted, darker, just really twisted.
Marty's showing his dark side.
It's true. I mean, I just really like that stuff.
You can have Saturday Night Fever on Friday.
I never could get into Stephen King much either. I read
several of his books. Those books. He collects them. I've read pieces here and there. I'm the same way. I think he gets I
He's
mean,
boring.
It's good, but when it's fucking talking about a stop sign for 25 minutes, it's talking about a stop sign for 25 minutes.
There are lots of things in King's writing that just bother me too. He would have characters that had no function whatsoever in the story. He would have this character. He'd give them a name. They would, have a few lines, but they never did anything. It's like, why did you have this character in there? They serve no purpose whatsoever. Little things like that. It's just like some of it just ended up being very, very two-dimensional. I just never could get into much of his stuff. But that's just me. Lots of folks enjoy it, and that's fine. I'm not trying to yuck anybody's yum.
I love Alan's slang.
Go ahead. Spurger Kang says, you like those horror stories comics that Creepshow takes inspiration from?
I absolutely do. I think a lot of horror movies that come off as crappy to people like, oh man, today's horror is not as good as in the past. And I like a lot of today's horror movies. I'm not talking about so much the big ones as much as there's a lot of hidden gems underneath all that stuff. But I like the short story. I love anthology films in general too, because a lot of these movies, they can't fit 90 minutes of a story into a 20-minute story. You know what I'm saying? The 70 minutes is what makes you lose the movie. But if you can get in there and just, get the corners of the story and put something together, it's amazing. That's what it is. I love reading the short stories, anything like that. I grew up on those comic books, Volta Horror, all that stuff, Twisted Tales. I personally love those. They're very easy. They're very quick, and it gets right to the point.
Let me ask you this question. I've kind of fallen out of grace with modern horror, and just before I started cutting off, it seemed like horror movies weren't really suspenseful anymore. They were placing all their chips on the jump scare. Is that kind of what horror has evolved into?
In a lot of, it's changing now. It's definitely changing now. It's getting a little bit more mental again, which is good. Like a movie like Hereditary from a few years ago.
You know what? I'm going to write that down. I've heard a lot of people talk about that movie.
That's a very good one. Like Lake Mungo is another one. Lake Mungo. These are ones that get under your skin. At least mine, they do. Of this, there was a new one that just came out. I can't even remember the friggin' name, but I did not like it at all. That one that's out now that everybody's talking about. Somebody down there is going to say the name. Search for the Nest. It's like kids' song or something. Spine shingity diggity or something. I watched that, and some people were saying it was the scariest movie ever. To me, there was nothing going on. One of the reviews said it was a guy kicking his cell phone around for 90 minutes. It literally has about 4 lines of dialogue in the entire movie, and I get the perspective. It's supposed to be the synopsis is 2 kids go to sleep with their dad. In the middle of the night, the kids wake up. All of a sudden, the dad's gone. They see their front door disappear. They see their windows disappear, and they're just inside this house. And it's all shot from maybe a 5-year-old's angle. The camera's like looking up and everything. But there's long interludes where there's nothing going on. And what they're trying to do is get you to play on like the shadows of the dark when you were a kid. You can imagine waking up in the middle of the night when you were a kid at 2 o'clock in the morning when you were 5 or 6, and just say you ended up in your living room and you didn't know your mom, anything. You were just kind of there. That's what the spooky they're going for, I think. But I just couldn't get creeped by it at all. Even the ending, there was nothing. And I'm telling you, there's maybe 42 words in the whole movie, and that's it, including sentences.
You're talking about being creeped out as a kid, and you just mentioned that, and it just made me remember the spookiest.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going
to say I just saw a guy put Smile. Smile was good for 25 minutes, but unfortunately, it lost me, and that's what I was saying earlier about the short story gets the worm. I just saw it came up at the bottom here. Smile. That was a horror movie. It just came and went. People liked it a lot. Go ahead, Barty. I'm sorry, buddy.
The creepiest thing I've ever seen when I was a kid in grade school, elementary school. There was a movie Friday every day at Cherry Knoll School here in Traverse City. And someone thought it was a great idea to show Leonard Nimoy's In Search of Bigfoot to a bunch of less than 10-year-old children.
I love that.
It fucked me up forever. And I would lay in bed at night. I mean, we lived in the woods. I mean, up here in northern Michigan, there's a lot of woods. I would lay in bed. I had Star Wars curtains with Chewbacca on it. I would be looking at the moonlight coming through my window and see the silhouette of Chewbacca and thought Bigfoot was looking through my fucking window. Leonard Nimoy's In Search of Bigfoot was the scariest movie I've ever seen in my life.
His voice is great. And you know what? That was the inspiration for the Blair Witch Project. The old In Search of 70s footage.
No shit. Was the
inspiration. You can look it up. It sure was. All those episodes like that are just in search of, we go in search of creepy shit,
Yep.
And his voice, I'm with you. And again, like I was telling Alan earlier, we were kids, so it was like it was before us. We were there.
Yep.
It was before us. It's like, you know what I'm saying?
Yep. And it's still to this day. I still am hunting on YouTube for Bigfoot stuff. It's stayed with me my entire life.
I'm looking at it from here. I got the entire In Search of every episode box set over there.
Nice. Ryan Muldoon has a question. I don't know if this is a serious one or not. You're going to have to elaborate.
Okay.
Ryan's got a good sense of humor, so it may be there may be something to this. I don't know.
I have a question. Do you regret including Incarnus on your Midnight Offerings compilations, both volume 1 and 2?
Ryan's band, so he's trying to push the band.
Oh, that fucker.
He's got 173 in a box he can't get fucking rid of. I love Incarnus, man. That's the coolest metal band to ever play a pizza place ever. I love it. I love it. Ryan's one of my bestest buddies, man. He wrote one of the best things in my book. And I love that guy, and I love Incarnus, man. I love those days. I met all those guys at the Photon down there in Virginia Beach. All those guys. Love them, man. Though, Ryan, I wish you to come to the goddamn fucking movie thing. We missed you. That's it. Thank you, Carl. That's the name of the movie. Skinamarink is the name of the one that I just didn't get into. One of my buddies loved it. Adam from Savage Master loved it. It just didn't do anything for me. And I saw somebody that put Hereditary fucked him up too. Hereditary, I love. Some people think it sucks. I think it's got some of the creepiest images since The Exorcist. Truly, you see these movies come up, they're like scarier than The Exorcist. You know, none of that really does it, but that did. And back to your original question real quick, Marty. There is good movies like that are out there, but yes, there's a lot of jump scares. The James Wan school of all the stuff that comes out now, the Conjurings and the Annabelles and the Nuns and all that kind of shit. That's just Hollywood 101. But if you dig deeper into something like the Hereditary, which did make some money, I love you too, Ryan. Now go sell your 173 fucking records, you motherfucker. That one, I mean, there's some of my favorite movies of this year that just passed. There was one called Men, which was really fucking freaky, and there was another one. It was just called. It wasn't the one that was on the series that was on Netflix, but it was called Watcher. It was about a woman who saw a man that kept following her, and nobody believed her story, kind of thing. But it was really put together nicely. Those were two of my favorites. You know, then you can get your. I liked Terrifier 2 for fun, for my gory catch for the year. That would be what I liked a lot. I hate CGI. I absolutely do. Practical all the way, man. Terrifier 2 had all the practical effects, and they look great. It's just people cutting corners now. And when you believe in something, you don't cut corners. That's what I say with Deceased. You'll never get a fucking rent record from us, man. We're all in. If we don't like it, it ain't coming out. That's why one of the reasons we left Relapse. They wanted 8 new songs, you know, in this time period, and if they ain't there, they ain't there. Desert Island horror films. Well, some of them are generics, man. I can see these now, Marty. I don't know if you're drawing them in with a courtroom sketch artist or not.
Alan's doing the work at the moment.
I got a couple of monkeys with chisels over here hammering away faster.
That's hard-working monkeys. You better be feeding them big bags of Funyuns.
Gave them a little bit of cocaine on their bananas and get them.
Besides the typical ones like your Exorcists, your Phantasms and stuff, Let's Scare Jessica to Death's got to be there. Burnt Offerings has to be there. Those are a few of them. Black Christmas, which has been played like 800 times during Christmas on cable. Must have watched it 40 times. Those are some of my all-time favorites. Some of my favorite lesser knowns. I'm a big Lake Mungo guy. I love that. I like Hereditary a lot for something that's sort of newer that would take to a desert island. I mean, there's movies everywhere. I'd be here all night, and I don't want to shortchange any. So that's a couple out of the gate. Going a little deeper, man, there's a lot of them that I just love. Night of the Living Dead has to go with me. Carnival of Souls. These are the classics now. Some of those have to go with me too. And, you know, just I think that's 9. Let me give you one more. What's something that most people don't seem to care about? There's one I love a lot that a lot of people do not know. It's a movie called The Premonition, and it's not the one with Sandra Bullock. It's from the 70s. It's a story about these hippie rock band that go out in the middle of a desert and they eat this peyote, and it makes them start seeing their own deaths. Very unknown. Alan Rudolph made it. That's a good one too that I love a lot. So there's 10 for you out of the gate. I know I didn't get too deep. I mean, we could sit here and talk maybe one night we'll do that. I don't know if that's Alan and Marty's forte.
What?
Laserdisc or beta? I don't know. I guess I'd go.
My parents bought a beta machine when the salesman talked him into, it's a better picture quality. And my parents' TV was a piece of furniture. It was like a piece of wood with a TV in the center. You remember the old school TVs that were like floor stand?
That's what I was listening to. My Iron Maiden stereo had the stereo and the TV in it.
Yep. Betamax. And then you go to the fucking video store and there was like this many beta movies and the rest of it was all VHS. I'm like, we bought the wrong fucking movie machine.
There been a band live you've seen that struck you as creepy, spooky, or weird? I know. Look at Ryan trying to get another one in. Boy, hey, what did you do? Sell 2 records? Somebody down there. I'll get one, Ryan. Hey, hey, buddy. Spooky, creepy, weird. Weirdest people I met. I don't know. John Olivia from Sabotage was pretty fucking weird when I saw them on The Power of the Night. No, I'm sorry. I saw him on the Hall of the Mountain King at a bar. He was all night, like literally talking to his Budweiser can and meaning it. Like he was like in some weird zone. And he did after that a little while later have to take a break because had a mental breakdown. You know, so that was pretty fucking weird. As an entertainer, that was freaky and stuff. I mean, not really. I mean, you kind of go in there and go what you're going to get. For the most part.
I love you more. No, I love you more. No, I love you more.
Copycat.
Here's one for you.
Were there any other unreleased songs? No, nothing from that one. Just a couple different mixes, which we put on the last version of the CD. No, there wasn't much anything at all in that one. The only record that ever had a song that didn't get used, which got used on a later CD, we had an instrumental on the Blueprints called A Dose of Reality, which came out on one of the later CDs. Fearless didn't have anything extra. Supernatural didn't have anything extra. Mourner's Veil didn't. Though we were supposed to do a cover of Plunging to Megadeth on that, which we didn't do. And Demons.
How's Eve?
Yeah, and Demons from Rigor Mortis, which is the band we didn't talk about earlier for horror stuff because they had a lot of horror themed stuff. But we did Demons later on the Thrash Times Ridgemont High. As the Weird Travel On, no outtakes. Surreal Overdose, none. Ghostly Wait, none. So just the only one ever was A Dose of Reality off of Blueprints. There's the trivia for another day. Nothing on Luck of the Corpse. Gut Wrench was supposed to be on the record. They saved it and kept it for the CD only.
Any other questions for King? Come on, folks. Now's your chance. Don't be bashful.
It's all right.
He don't bite unless you pay him.
It's like the Spinal Tap when nobody shows up for the autograph session. Kick my ass. Kick this ass. I'm telling you. I'm not asking you. I'm telling you. Kick this ass.
I've got one while folks in the chat think for all of us. A couple of moments from horror movies that generally scared the shit out of you the first time you saw it. Not just a quick, ooh, ah, ha, 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 but it was just like, oh, fuck.
A lot of people haven't seen Hereditary. There's a scene at the end when the mother does something at the top of the ceiling of a room that has got to be one of the most eerie visuals I've ever seen. The spookiest thing I've ever seen hit me at a movie real quick out of the gate was Luck of the Corpse Lady. When I first saw the drop of water and they opened that door and showed that lady in that bed dead, that creeped me out as a kid totally. I still get creeps out with the scene in The Exorcist when she's sitting in the chair and she sort of looks up with the eyes at the doctor. That one shot is another one for me. Those are ones that spook me out a lot. Other than that, and then just the vibe when I was with my mother, as I said earlier, in 1976, seeing this fucking Burnt Offerings movie. Mm-hmm. This guy right here on my shirt tonight, he was the chauffeur, and he would give that smile. And Oliver Reed was sitting there, and he was in the old time hearse, and they were all like giving that smile. That stayed with me for years. You know, a lot of people were spooked out by like Trilogy of Terror doll and stuff. That never freaked me out. Now, if you want to go commercials for movies, the It's Alive Baby with the claw commercial scared the shit out of me. And I know there's people down there that did the same thing for this one, or they're maybe a little older. That goddamn dummy from Magic. That goddamn Fats dummy from Magic when he was in there, you know, with the flickering eyeball puppet. Oh, my God. That was freaky. And I'll put links to that. So if anybody wants to see that tomorrow, I'll put some of that, you know, what do they call that? Kinder trauma shit where you're shit that scared you as a kid. That's some of the ones for me that really scared me. But yeah, that lady in the Hereditary, that ending part, what she's doing, that's a freaky visual, man.
Okay.
That the Luck of the Corpse Lady.
I've got one.
Marty, other than Bigfoot, what
well, yeah, that one. The movie The Prince of Darkness with it's got Alice Cooper in it.
Yeah, you said this before, I remember. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a dream sequence in it where there's like a church. It's like a choppy like video, and there's like an archway, and there's like a distorted like Satan backlit, and there's like this is not a dream type of thing. That fucking dream sequence fucked me up as a teenager. I remember my parents were away, they're out having a dinner or something. We never had cable, so my parents like threw down all the money they had and bought one of those gigantic 12-foot satellite dishes. I was watching it on a movie channel. I was sitting at home alone with the dog. I got the dog like clawed. I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. That fucking freaked me out of all the movies. That's the one I always think of is that Prince of Darkness dream sequence. I think Edge of Sanity used it in that the sample from that. This is not a dream sample is in one of the Edge of Sanity albums. Anyway. Yeah. How about you, Alan?
There's only 3 that ever really, really got me pretty good. Yeah, and like most, kind of like you described earlier, Marty. As a kid, teenager, we just worked our way through the horror movie section in the in the VHS rental store.
Yep.
But yeah, let's see. One was the scene in the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre when they're first kind of going into the house and they hear the thumping sound. And they're walking over and they finally open up like, the big meat freezer thing and the girl's body's in there and it's jerking really bad. That was kind of one of those moments like, oh shit, fuck that.
I know she does a great,
Yeah. It's
coming out of a freezer.
yeah. That was one.
I agree.
Let's see. Another one that just absolutely got me the first time I saw the first Friday the 13th movie. Because you go through the whole thing, it's kind of, it's straightforward and it's his mother and she's crazy and she's killing the kids and everything's in, and the movie's wrapping up, at the end, and it's, they've got the soft music on, they're getting ready to roll the credits, and, the cops are there and the girl's waving out from the boat. And Jason comes up out of the fucking water behind her and drags her down. And he's only on screen for like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
That scared the fucking piss. I mean, it was, and I was like an idiot watching it at like 1:30 in the morning. The whole house is dark, and that really was one of those just like, oh no, it didn't. Oh no, it didn't. Oh shit. Oh shit. Just completely lost my shit. I had seen all the Friday the 13th movies very out of order, and I probably hadn't at that point. I probably had not seen maybe 2 or 3, so I really didn't know the complete origin for Jason. So everything they had done in this movie so far made sense. Okay, this movie's just kind of about, the background legend, and I guess the actual hockey mask dude shows up in the second movie or the third movie. I don't know. But then he shows up at the end of the first movie, just that very, very quick. And that's what made it so effective. It's not just that it's out of nowhere. You barely see him. And it was one of those things I literally would sit there like the next day, backing it up frame by frame, on the VHS, watching come out the water and just like, oh, fuck me. That's the scariest.
Me, my sister, and my mom saw that opening night. My sister pissed her pants.
I don't doubt
9 years old. She pissed her pants. Look, I'm going to show you something, Alan. Here you go, real quick. Let me see if I can get this up here. Am I doing it right? Can you guys see that?
Yep.
That's Jason from Friday the 13th. That's the guy you saw. He was front row at the Deceased show in North Carolina, the Chainsaw Fest earlier last year.
Yeah.
He went insane for Deceased. He thrashed the whole time. He's known for that. He has his own band too.
That's really cool.
Centers. And it was so cool. We were talking about that. I told him, I said, my sister pissed her fucking pants.
Yeah, that's the best jump scare I've ever seen.
What was your third?
The third and last one is a scene from the middle of the first Evil Dead movie where the shit's already kind of gone bad, and it may already be down to just Ash. I'm not quite sure. I haven't watched it in ages, but some of them are already dead. Shit's going crazy. He's already stabbed the girl in the ankle with the pencil, where she can't stand up. And, so he's kind of standing there in the room freaking out. And so she can't get up or move around, but she's sitting there on the floor, kind of cross-legged and just kind of bobbing her head back and forth, that, that really high pitched nails on the chalkboard laugh.
Best scene in the movie, I think.
It just keeps going and going. And, she's, they've got the makeup where she's already possessed and all that stuff.
The contacts are in.
Yeah, the contacts are in. The head just kind of keeps, she's not doing it loud. She's not doing it violent. She's not a threat because she can't move. She can't walk. She can't stand up. But she just keeps doing it over and over and over. And it fucks him up. He goes there and starts screaming at her and, everything. But just that whole scene where it's dark and, you really feel like, this guy's alone at this point. He's totally fucked. And she just keeps doing that fucking laugh and rolling the fucking head.
It drives him nuts.
It drives him crazy. It was another one. Me and my one of my buddies who watched, we watched a lot of the horror films together. It was one of the very few times, he picked up the remote and hit the stop button. He's just like, I just can't deal with this. Right? He's just like, I need a minute.
Did he pee his pants?
Let's go get. It didn't pee his pants. He's like, I need another beer. I need some air. I need to turn the lights on for a minute. And he's just like, you could kind of tell he's like looking at me. He's just like, you don't think I'm a pussy, do you? I'm just like, no, that's cool, man. This shit got to stop for a minute. This ain't cool. This shit is not good.
It just so everybody knows, I'll repeat this. Every Halloween I watch Hocus Pocus. King, another question for you. King, what's your favorite piece of horror movie music or soundtrack? See, I breezed over that.
Gotta be that damn Suspiria tune for a rockin' tune. Is that the best horror theme of all time? Will always be Phantasm for me. It'll never be topped. The original Phantasm, because not only is it brilliant, but as a kid, it hit me at the time when I was that kid. It hit me when I was 10 years old, and it made me think of how spooky the world was. And my quick Phantasm story to go with that music is the first time I tried to see Phantasm, because again, as I said earlier, my mother took us to every movie. We tried to go see it. It was playing at a drive-in. On one end, it was drive-ins had two screens. One end was playing Phantasm, and one was playing Holy Moses with fucking Dudley Moore. Okay? Phantasm was sold out. So we had to go see Dudley Moore's Holy Moses to see anything. Well, I got out of the car and told my mom, I'm going to walk over there and watch it. It was winter time. It was totally freezing cold, not snowing, but about to snow. It was like 10:30 at night, and it was ghastly dark. And I tried to walk up this fence, and the guy kept telling me, you can't go. Well, finally, he was getting ready to close up shop for the night because the movie was coming to the end. I never saw the movie that night until the part in the movie, people that have seen it, the part near the end when they go there and they go inside the thing and they figure out the story about the time, the dwarves and stuff. And they come out of the house and the mortuary, and it disappears. That part right there is where I was, and I saw the tall man there, and I looked at the fence, and I heard it, and the music came on, that, the themes we all know. And years later, this is part of the story too. Years later, I went to go meet the tall man. This is when he very first started coming to horror conventions. Not when he was very, very old, but they did a thing in Arlington, Crystal City, a thing on Forrest J. Ackerman. Anyway, he was there. Well, we had been drinking the night before I went there. We fucking missed him. He was already done. I was like, man, I can't believe I missed fucking Angus Scrimm, my favorite fucking horror guy. I look, and there he goes, walking across the lobby, getting ready to leave the hotel. I ran over, and he went, oh, my God, you scared the hell out of me. And I said, then we're even, man. We're even. I said, we're even. Phantasm is my all-time favorite horror movie. All-time favorite horror movie.
I've never seen that movie.
Because it's a brilliant, odd, weird, nightmarish movie, and I get a lot more out of it than some people do. I do think it's the embodiment of losing your loved ones and stuff and having to go on with life and dealing with death inside of a young kid's mind. The theme is beautiful. That one, and then Suspiria is right there, and I love the theme to Carrie. Is another one I love, that stuff, any of that stuff, even if it does borrow from Alfred Hitchcock and all that stuff.
Another question here from Carl. Have you seen the new Korean virus/zombie movie, The Sadness? It shocked me how over the top it was.
I watched a few minutes. I haven't sat down to it yet. I've been watching so many movies. It's definitely there. It's definitely what I've seen. It's gory as fuck. It's definitely crazy. I have not sat down to the whole thing. I will. I love the gore things, but they always come second to me. If I'm hearing anybody talk about a new movie that's really freaky and scary and weird and shit, that's the ones I go to first. I flock to those. Anything that comes out in the theater, me and my wife are religiously go to the drive-ins to this day. Here in Pennsylvania, where we are, they have 18 drive-ins in the state.
Wow.
Which is the most in the company in the country. There's one drive-in that's actually open right now. It's like fucking 30 some degrees here, and it's open right now. And if I didn't do this tonight, I'd be there right now. Tonight they're playing The Thing and They Live. Okay, they're playing both those for Friday.
God, They Live. What a fun! I haven't seen that.
They're playing those tonight, but I go to all of them. They Live's good. It's underrated.
You know another era, a movie from that era that I've always been fascinated by, and I will watch on YouTube once. It's not really that. It's The Night of the Comet. Do you remember that movie?
I don't like that as much as some people do. I
don't love it, but it's like
Valley Girls.
Yeah, it's like Valley Girls with a kind of a.
I don't dislike it. Don't get me wrong, but some people really love it. I can't go that far with that. But anything that comes out, I see it. I've seen any movie that's been in the theater. I've seen it in the last year. We go every weekend. Me and my wife. That's what we do nowadays. I've seen them all. The guy was talking about Smile. The first 20 minutes was great. Barbarian. The first 25 minutes was great, and then they changed the story. It goes a different direction. Doesn't work for me. I've been very disappointed. I saw them all. The Invitation. So I mean, I know you don't know what I'm even fucking talking about.
Let's see one
Oh,
here.
yeah. We got talking about Tim Curry and Legend.
I got to pee. I'll be right back.
Sure. We
know
one
who's got a bad bladder on the on the show.
Yeah, here's one King from earlier. I can't get it up on screen, but Spurger King asked King, do you like sci-fi horror or just straight up horror? Because we haven't really talked a lot about sci-fi horror tonight at all.
Sci-fi horror is okay at times. There's some that really fuck with me. I really like, and I don't say it's totally horror, but I like the Cube movies. You know, the first Cube was great. I will say this: I've never found Alien scary. People like
someone was asking about Alien earlier too. Yeah,
no, I've never found it scary. It's okay. I don't dislike it. Don't get me wrong. All those ones kind of like that. I don't want to say they're all got to be futuristic, but just sci-fi in general. Weird things like I would go to something more like Cronenberg, like Shivers or something like that for like sci-fi type of stuff. I do like that stuff, and I watch it all. It's just some things go to the top for me. I love the movies where it's very if it's straight horror all the way through, like an Exorcist, or it's just played straight. There's no humor. There's no happy endings, something like that, or Burn Offering, something like that are my favorites. But I also like a good giant shark movie, even if it's a 10th rate Jaws. I do like a good giant shark movie, things like that too. But I don't dislike sci-fi. The only ones I don't really like for horror movies that much. Timepieces are fine to a degree, but a lot of times they just don't work. They just fall short for me.
Makes sense. They spend so much time on the setting that I can sometimes lose something.
Yeah, not all the movies are good that and the things I like too. But when you find a good horror movie, there's nothing better for me.
Okay,
and I do like comedies, and I do like other things. Hi, Marty.
Hey,
we gave your bladder a fucking 1.5 stars.
Here's another one. Here's another one. King from Lapse 9 Continuum asked, what's your favorite Hammer horror film?
Vampire Circus. Absolutely. I think it's probably one of the darkest ones they did. And the other one I love, and I always forget the fucking name. It's not 100% horror. Fuck. Let me look real quick and I'll tell you. The one where the guy keeps the girl in the house with him, and he's nuts. Let me see if I can get the list up here real quick. I want to tell you. Someone asked me this 2 weeks ago, and I couldn't remember. I looked it up and found it. Now I'm going to fucking 2 weeks later, it's still not in my fucking head. That's bullshit. But Vampire Circus is my favorite. They're not, whichever one I don't want to spend all night on this, but I hit it. It said, the key movies, which is like Dracula. But no, for me, Vampire Circus was the darkest one. It was definitely had a bad, spite to it, which I liked. I'm more of an Amicus guy. I like the Amicus movies. I like those anthologies.
Okay.
Which include Asylum and House That Drip Blood. And
it's no hocus pocus, but whatever.
my wife loves Hocus Pocus.
I watch it every fucking Halloween. Now there's two of them to watch. They're basically the same movie, but
I guess you could have said The Worst Witch, so it could have been worse.
Witches and warlocks. That's all we're about here.
That's right. That's right. Well, I guess that's it. We've gone 3 hours. King, it's always a pleasure, my friend. And I'm so glad you joined us again. It's been good to see you. It's been awesome to see you again. I know you've had a busy fall, and you got another people in Florida. You're in for a treat. Deceased is doing a few dates through your area.
I wish I knew all that. Let me see if I got my flyer here. I'll tell you real quick. I know we're playing the Brass Mug. Will be on Saturday, I think that's the 18th of February. We'll be at the Brass Mug that's Tampa. We're going to be playing at Gramps down in Miami, and I can't think of the other one. And they're somewhere right outside of Orlando. But they're all it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Tampa's last, and Miami's on Friday, and the one in Orlando's on Thursday.
Who are you playing with?
Us and a couple of local bands. We're just going to get out. We haven't played Florida in a few years. Like we went to Canada. We hadn't been to Canada when we went down there for 16 years. I was like, man, wow. we had a blast. Well, up there to Canada, we had a blast. It was us. Bulldozer didn't play one of the shows, but it was us, Bulldozer, Aries Kingdom, and Demiser. It was a great tour.
Nice, good lineup.
So yeah, we're going to do that. We got some other stuff coming up. We're going to be playing a Mexico festival in September. We're going to be doing. We're playing this thing, Hell in the Harbor, that just got announced, which is taking Maryland Death Fest thing for this year. That's in the end of May. And then there's one or two more festivals we'll be playing at Randy's thing in Wisconsin later in the year. A couple other things we haven't announced yet, but it's gonna be fun, man. And we're working on the new record, Children of the Morgue. and it's going to be, like I said earlier, it's going to be very dark. It's a concept on life and death. Basically, at the end, we're all worm food. It's kind of like there's no happy endings in any of the songs. Still, it's still deceased. There's definitely some adventurous stuff coming on this one. I don't want to say it's our Kiss the Elder, not without a purple headband on, but it's gonna be pretty cool.
Some of us love Kiss the Elder, by the way.
Yeah, Indiana's been Wade. Indiana's been rocking, dude. Those last 2 times, man. Not the show with Accused, man. I think that's the most stage diving I've seen for a deceased show in a long time. And then we went back and played a matinee with Bulldozer on a Sunday the last time around, man, and it was insane. Indiana really looks out for us, man. Some good people there, and I'm definitely got to get back to there. I love play that every year. I just want to go, man. I just want to go.
I do want to ask you. I totally missed your show in Detroit at the Sanctuary.
I love that place too.
I'm a big The Accused fan. How is the Accused AD without Tommy?
It's great because it's Blaine. Tommy's too much. Tommy's too screwed up. I don't know.
I know Tommy's screwed up, but man, his riffs. His riffs are fucking killer.
Well, they play it just right. I mean, Blaine takes care of business. They were vicious every night, dude, start to finish.
And Blaine, the way he talks is the way he sings. I mean, his vocals are crazy, but you hear him talk. He has you could tell he's not going to throw his voice out. So you could tell he's totally. No,
it was
sick.
great, dude. You got to come down next time we're up there.
Oh, I know. I was so pissed. It was during the week. There was no way in hell I was going to make it during the week.
Yeah, it was one of them tours. Sometimes those weekend warrior things are good because it's usually Friday or Saturday. But when you're on tour, you're playing every night. You're like, well, when are you going to be here? Oh, Tuesday. You're like, man, I can't make a fucking Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm old guy I can't do it.
Can't do it, man. I think it was a Thursday, actually. You might have been able to do that, but I get it. That's all right.
Yeah.
Cool. I think you had to wrap up Ryan's records for him and mail them out.
Ryan, box up your records, send them to me. I'll try to sell them for you.
We always do the Scooby-Doo thing, like Zoinks, today's Scooby and the gang meet. We have today's meeting Marty Worm.
Well, that's it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. We had a great time. Great show. King, as always, you rule. Everybody go check out Deceased if you're unfamiliar. Go check out October 31, who have got something coming up here soon as well. Doomstone, of course.
Doomstone hasn't been together for years. It won't be. October 31's doing a farewell record this year. There'll be no more live shows. Everybody, look out and, keep a blessing in your heart for Brian, who's going through some hard-ass Parkinson's disease, our guitar player.
Fuck yeah, man. What a drag, man. Getting old sucks.
Yeah, he's going to be 60 here in any time now. So, yeah, that's what happens, man. That's all those years of doing it to it. But, yeah, we're going to do our thing. We always will, man.
Alan, do you have anything to add?
Nope. It's been a really fun show. Thanks to everybody for hanging out in the chat. There's been lots of cool questions. Sorry, there were a few questions at the end we didn't get to, but King will be back in the near future.
I'll also look tomorrow on the comments if anybody has any questions. I'll type in there. I always maybe even later tonight.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so if we weren't able to get your question up, if you'll repost it over in the comments section, that way King can look at them when he's got a chance, and he can always leave you an answer over there. But yep, we'll have him back as soon as we can for another fun topic. But I guess it's about time to wrap this one up.
Yep. Show notes. Wednesday, we got the album club. I picked, what's the name of that band that put out the Pale Swordsman album, Alan?
Kektorak.
Yep. We're covering that on the album club. Friday, we've got Mark Riddick, the renowned underground artist. Mark Riddick.
He's a great guy. He's done work for us, too.
He's done work for my band, The Glorious Dead, as well, a t-shirt. And he's going to also be doing a t-shirt design for Heavy Metallurgy. So get ready for that.
Marty, can you do this? How about you, Alan? Can you do this? Your finger? You just bend that first knuckle?
I can't see what you're doing. Sorry. My eyes not good.
You can see that? Just the one knuckle. I don't know why I do that. See, Marty can't do it. Can you do it with your pinky, too? Look.
I can do it if I cheat.
I could do it with my wiener, but I'm not going to show that. Anyway. Everybody,
I'll give you a wiener for you. Here's
everybody, we love you. Take care. We'll see you. We'll see you Wednesday. Cheers.
Everybody, take care.